Good evening, folks. Welcome. I'm going to call the regular meeting of the Nevada City Council to order. Today is Wednesday, March 13th, 2024, and it is 6:31 p.m. Just a comment on the procedure for public comment. As we have done in the past, in order to participate in public comment for items not on the agenda, we will need those wishing to speak to fill out the speaker cards. They are over there on that table. To your right, you'll return that card to Gabby, our Deputy City Clerk, right over here to my right, and she will randomly pull the speaker cards when I open the public comment period. Public comment for items not on the agenda comes up soon on the agenda, so please come fill out the speaker card if you have not already. I'm going to ask my colleague, Councilmember Klein, to read our Nisenan tribal recognition, please.
We acknowledge that the Nisenan people are still here among us today, though nearly invisible. We understand that we are on Nisenan land that was never ceded, and the original tribal families have yet to recover from the near genocide of their people. As a resident or visitor on Nisenan land, we support the Nevada City Rancheria Nisenan tribe in efforts to stabilize their people as well as their campaign to restore federal recognition.
Thank you, Adam. And Gary, Vice Mayor Peterson, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, moving on to roll call. Before Councilmember Fleming has advised he will not be able to attend the meeting this evening. With that, Madam Deputy City Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilmember Ceci.
Here.
Councilmember Klein.
Here.
Vice Mayor Peterson.
Here.
And Mayor Fernandez.
I am here.
4 present.
Great, thank you, Gabby, not Abby. Adoption of the agenda. Council, now is the time for any agenda modifications. Would anyone at the table like to change the agenda, pull consent items, or do we have recusals to announce? Okay, I am looking for a motion and a second to adopt the agenda.
I move we adopt the agenda as written.
Second.
Great, I have a motion from Vice Mayor Peterson and a second from Councilmember Ceci. Those in favor, please say aye.
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 And those opposed? I'm hearing none, so motion carries 4-0. Moving on to presentations for the evening. First and only presentation is an acknowledgement, a proclamation for Women's History Month. And I will read that here. Proclamation, Women's History Month, 2024. Whereas the it's off to a great start. Whereas the month of March was selected as Women's History Month to coincide with the United Nations sponsorship of International Women's Day, which occurred on March 8th in 2024, as a time to commemorate women's rights and peace. And whereas the campaign theme for International Women's Day 2024 is Inspire Inclusion, quote, when we aspire others to understand and value women's inclusion, we forge a better world. And when women themselves are inspired to be included, there's a sense of belonging, relevance, and empowerment. Collectively, let's forge a more inclusive world for women. And whereas women of every race, class, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender identity, and ability have made historic contributions to the growth and strength of our city, state, and nation in countless recorded and unrecorded ways. Women have influenced and advanced every facet of American life and culture. The strength, ingenuity, and spirit of our female leaders, innovators, and pioneers shape our nation's character, government, industries, families, and communities. And whereas women have significantly influenced public policy and contributed to the building of viable institutions and organizations that continue to support our communities today, and the knowledge, skills, and abilities of women contribute to a more robust workforce and a more prosperous economy. And whereas women have been leaders not only in securing their own rights of suffrage and equal opportunity, but also in the abolitionist movement, emancipation movement, industrial labor movement, civil rights movement, peace movement, and more that aim to create a more fair and just society for all. In remembering the trailblazers of the past and the heroines of the present day, we honor their legacies by carrying forward the valuable lessons learned from the powerful examples they set. And whereas we recognize the countless accomplishments of local women within our community who teach our children, care for our sick, serve in our military, start businesses, serve in elected positions, or venture into unknown frontiers. Generations of women have had to overcome obstacles put in their way of their achievement, and we reaffirm our commitment to supporting the next generation of female trailblazers and dreamers as they carry forward this distinguished legacy. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the City of Nevada City and the City Council hereby proclaims the month of March 2024 as Women's History Month, and hereby encourages its residents to learn more about the rich and diverse history of women through available programs, readings, ceremonies, and educational activities.
Yay, women.
Say the men at the desk, at the table. Thank you, colleagues. Public comments. Government Code Section 54954.3 provides that any member of the public may address the City Council on any matter not on the agenda that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city. The Brown Act, with limited exceptions, does not allow the council or staff to discuss issues brought forth under public comment. The council cannot take action on non-agenda items. Concerns may be referred to staff or placed on a future agenda. Please note that comments from the public will also be taken on the consent calendar and each agenda item at the time it is heard. As I stated when we opened up, public comment will work as such. Please grab a comment card at the table over here, give it to Gabby over here, and that's how we will work public comments. You will have 3 minutes to speak, and we will keep to that time. There's a little timer up here so you can keep track of your time too. The total time for public comment for each item, for items not on the agenda, will be an hour and a half. We will continue to pull names from the speaker slips until everyone has spoken or the 90 minutes is up, whatever comes first. It looks as though folks will get a chance to speak tonight, all folks in the room, if you decide to. As a reminder, we ask that everybody adhere to our rules of decorum established for this meeting. Those are also posted on the walls and available at the podium. Any disruptive behavior, threats of violence, and actual violence will not be tolerated. Clapping, yelling, or making noise during or between others' time to speak is not allowed, although we do encourage you to display your support if you would like to through other means. You guys have done really well at showing your support in this way. Only those that have been called to the podium can be in line behind it. Flags or any displays, we ask that you do not block the aisle or anyone speaking, and should be kept to the rear of the room as opposed to scattered about in different chairs. The sharing of time is not permitted, and Madam Deputy City Clerk, you can call the first group of names, please.
So first off will be Don Zaidonis, Park and Recs. Speak on a survey. This will not go against the 90 minutes.
Good evening, council. If you have not seen the city's website or, Don Zaidonis, Parks and Recreation Manager. If you have not seen our website or social media today, the county is doing a survey to enhance their Recreation and Resiliency Master Plan. And so we have paper copies available here this evening at the agenda table or in the office. If somebody wants to stop by City Hall and pick that up, you can also do that online. And the ones we have here at City Hall are for Nevada City specific. If you go online, you can choose I'm a Grass Valley resident, or if you recreate more in Grass Valley, then you'd want to choose that and answer the questions that follow. So short and sweet, that's all I wanted to let you know.
Awesome. Thanks, Don. For folks who just came in, if you would like to give public comment tonight, we're asking folks fill out the public comment cards over on the table over here, pass them off to Gabby, and we'll take the next few minutes to before we close that out. All right, Gabby, what you got?
Okay, first four: Ethan Cameron, Josh, Mikos Faversoon, and Charlie. Please come up and stand before the lectern. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Ethan Cameron. Thank you all for your service to our town and our community. I appreciate all of your volunteer hours and dedication to making things happen so smoothly here. I also would like to thank Dan for the, well, I've just heard wonderful things about you as the chief of police in Nevada City, specifically around how you kind of build community and build relationships with people. Having been here, raised in Nevada City my whole life, it's very nice to see that change. I think it's really important in terms of just like how communities are held together to have that sense of relationship and connection. I'm here tonight to talk about the agenda item regarding the military equipment that the.
So just real quick, I'm so sorry. I'm going to
Yeah.
stop you. That we will take that at the time it comes up
Oh,
on the
okay.
consent agenda.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so this is for items not on the agenda.
Okay. Can I speak twice?
Yes.
Well, then I'm going to pivot. Thank you.
You can theoretically, you can speak on any item.
Okay, cool. Remember what I said before. And I'm just here because I have been coming and I'm still dedicated to the idea of Nevada City passing a ceasefire resolution. And I appreciate the time and effort that council members have put into speaking to community members. I'm very interested in the ongoing conversation and the conversation as we move forward. And I just wanted to say that. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ethan. See you in a few.
Hi, I'm back again. You can probably guess what I'm going to talk about. I would say generally, I'm a pretty big advocate for consensus decision making. I think it works a whole lot better than representative democracy. I think it involves everyone, which is more important than just casting a vote every 4 years, or 2 years, I guess. But I'm also kind of curious. I don't think we're going to come to consensus about this. I don't even have to say what it is. I think you all know what I'm talking about. Our community is already divided, and I just don't think we're going to come to consensus about this. And while I definitely believe in building community and having consensus decision making and coming to an agreement together, I just don't think that's going to happen. I feel like this is something that is so urgent and so divisive that I just don't see consensus ever happening. And like something that I'll bring up is if, let's say, all of those neo-Nazis who called in before came in and wanted to be part of a community discussion, I don't think we would let them be that, because at a certain point you have to say we're not going to tolerate hate. We're not going to be tolerant, we must be intolerant towards intolerance. And so we shouldn't be allowing Holocaust deniers to come in here and deny the Holocaust. We shouldn't be allowing people to come in here and deny any genocide or any act of hate or anything. That's not to demean individual people. That's to say that what's going on is a genocide. And it's so important and so pressing and urgent that we need to take action now. I would have loved if we'd taken action 5 months ago, but I'll take it now, or in 2 weeks, if you hopefully put it on the agenda then. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that I believe in community decision-making and consensus, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think what's going to happen is in April, we'll sit down, we'll talk about it, and we're not going to get anywhere. And I don't want to be rude, but I think it'll waste most of our time, including yours, because I just don't see it going anywhere. I don't see it making the decisions that we need it to make, and I don't see us coming to an agreement as a community. I think what's going to happen is there's going to be a lot of arguing, there's going to be a lot of heated words and a lot of things, and we're not going to accomplish anything. And so that's why I'm here, again, for probably the 6th or 7th time I lost track. Because we need a ceasefire resolution. We need a ceasefire period. We needed it 6 months ago. We needed it 5 months ago. We need it now. And that's why we're here, because we're asking for immediate action to go and stop the bombing. Sure, this might not do it, but it'll be another point, another voice in it. Because if every community and every person said, oh, my individual voice isn't going to matter, we're never going to get anything done. Because if enough people together say that their voice matters, even in the smallest part, that's how something gets done. That's how we build a movement.
Thanks, Josh.
My name is Mikos Fabersoon. I'm a former resident of Nevada City for 9 years. I'm speaking on the resolution as well. I'll be brief. I think we need to have one. I think it could be as simple as we want to support a ceasefire and the use of and the introduction of humanitarian aid to Gaza. It would save lives. It would save Israeli lives. It would save Palestinian lives. And if it were as simple as something like that, I think this council could support that. I don't, as the previous speaker indicated, I think waiting until we've had a larger community dialogue, which I do support actually, I don't think that's going to be of much value in meeting the urgency of which the Palestinians are experiencing now in terms of starvation that's going on that can be easily seen. I don't need to go over that more, but anyway, that's my position. So I hope you do act, even if it's narrowing the scope a little bit. Thank you.
Thanks, Mikos.
Good evening. My name is Charlie. Hi, Council. I know you know what we're all here for again. I did hear about the meeting that might be in April, tentatively, I think. And I just want to caution Council on platforming voices to an equal degree, in the sense that what my comrade said earlier about being intolerant to intolerance. We don't need to sit at a table with white supremacists and pretend like they should have equal weight in a matter because their views want to exterminate a people, and I don't think we shouldn't platform a genocide isn't happening and a genocide is happening as an equal take. I think we need to establish a baseline with this meeting that genocide is happening, and how do we move on? How do we move through it? And instead of fighting over the particulates of whether or not this genocide is happening. So just a word of caution, I guess. I hope this community discussion happens. I hope it surprises you with how many people turn out in favor of a ceasefire. I really do. And yeah, that's all I have to say tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie.
Okay, the next four we have is Jesse, Zach, Liz Newman, and Diana Kay. Please step up.
Hi, my name is Jesse Sabin. I'm back again, and I am a volunteer advocate for human rights in Palestine, and I want to address some of the things that have been said here. I think there's been a lot of personal attack and innuendo against my friends who are coming to you asking for this ceasefire resolution, and so I'll leave that at that. And I guess on the subject of some controversial slogans, I don't personally say from the river to the sea or Intifada. I don't like upsetting people. And I understand that these expressions do upset people. But there is also a thing called the Palestinian Youth Movement, and these are their slogans, and they aren't necessarily calling for mass slaughter of any kind. They're asking for their freedom. And when we attribute their slogans to the worst of Arabic-speaking people, we are participating in an erasure of them. And it's really just manipulating whatever biases we might have against Arabic-speaking people. It's happened to me plenty of times. I've fallen for it because I'm biased more towards Jewish people than I am Arabic people. I was a high school student when 9/11 happened, and I lived through all of that. And so just a personal anecdote. First time I fell for it, I'm like, oh gosh, tell my anti-Zionist Jewish friends, some of these people really are anti-Semitic. They were saying Intifada, or they were saying from the river to the sea. And they're like, what do you know about it? Do you speak Arabic? Is it appropriate for you to censor the Arabic language? And the answer is no. And it's illegal in Israel to say things like Intifada. Like, you can get shot for that. And we don't need to apply that policy here. We don't need to censor other people's language just because some teenagers, in defiance of racism, dig their heels in and say these slogans. It's not appropriate for me to gatekeep their language. I don't think it's appropriate for anyone to gatekeep it. Thank you.
Thank you. Zach, hold on just a second. Josh, if you could come please get these signs. That's like the third time now. We're just asking that folks keep signs with them. Otherwise, to the back of the room, please. By practice, we don't usually fill empty seats with signs regardless of what the signs say or what the issue is. Hi, Zach.
Hi, guys. Zach, back again, asking for a ceasefire resolution to be agendized and passed. I've been thinking a lot about growing up here, and so much of my grade school and middle school education was minor stuff. Oh, come look at the rusty cannon. Look how cool minor stuff is. And zero mention of the Nisenan. And such a shame. I mean, I lost out on the real history of my the place I grew up. And you know, hopefully that's changing. I'm not an educator, so I don't know what goes on in school now in Nevada County. But every year I went and looked at mining sites that were sites of genocide and said, wow, what a cool history. And I just, I hope that's now, you know, starting to shift. And I think that's, if it has shifted at all, it's because of movements like the one going on for Palestine currently, and changing what is normal to talk about. Mining wasn't cool, it was a genocide, and it was really gross in a lot of ways. Right now, there's another genocide going on, and you know, and there will continue to be genocides, but what needs to be normal is that we can talk about it at every level of government with everyone you have community with. We need to move the needle of what's a normal thing to say out loud at every section of our lives, because what goes on in the world is our problem everywhere. And you know, I missed last week's, but the week before, you know, we had a lot of really unpleasant stuff coming in from Zoom, and that scared the crap out of a lot of people. And if we want a safe community, we really need to be able to say the very basic, we don't support genocide. I mean, it doesn't get easier than that. You know, if we want to move the needle to a better world, the bare minimum is saying we don't support genocide. I mean, come on, really, really easy stuff. Seems like a no-brainer to me. There's nothing, no matter what happened on the 7th or at any point in history, nothing can justify what is happening in Gaza right now. Zero things justify that. It is unjustifiable, ever. And it is unjustifiable to be silent about it, about the genocide of the Nisenan here, about genocide going on right now with our money. So let's move the needle a little bit, and then maybe down the road we can, you know, move it a little more and have a chance at a better world, maybe. Thanks.
Thanks, Zach.
Hi, my name is Liz Newman, and I'm a Nevada County resident. I just wanted to start by saying that I appreciate you guys being here. This job can't be easy right now, being on the receiving end of so much anger and frustration, and I am frustrated and I am angry. We are watching a genocide unfold in real time, and I personally am overwhelmed with powerlessness. So I come here and to other places like this, and I get in front of a podium and I pour out some of my frustration, and I beg for humanity, hoping something that I say will get through to you. I have seen a man carrying his children's body parts in shopping bags and newborns decomposing in hospital beds as their parents and doctors were forced at gunpoint to leave them behind. I have heard the screams from children having limbs removed without anesthesia, and I will never forget the 2-year-old shot in the head point blank while in his mother's arms, or the grandmother shot by an Israeli sniper while waving a white flag and holding the hand of her 5-year-old grandson. Or the 4 pregnant women on their way to the hospital to give birth, also carrying white flags, who were shot dead and then run over by IDF bulldozers. Or all of the children dead and dying from starvation right now because not enough aid trucks are being allowed in. I could talk all night about the atrocities being committed, but luckily for you, I only have 3 minutes. I have cried every single day for the last 5 months over the men, women, and children being tortured and traumatized by the Israeli military. And I have seen Israeli soldiers laughing, mocking, and making TikToks while they do it. I am not an activist. I am not affiliated with any groups. I am here on my own as a mother and a humanitarian who believes with my whole heart that every single person's life is equally precious. I do not care who calls me anti-Semitic for speaking against the killing of thousands, because I know that it's not true, and honestly it's lazy, so I won't even entertain it. Any loss of life is a loss, including those lost on October 7th. And now at least 70 hostages have been killed due to Israelis' indiscriminate bombing. That is why we need a permanent ceasefire for the lives on both sides. I've been called insensitive because I do not consider certain people's feelings in town. They're right. I don't care about feelings, and honestly, neither should you. Feelings are not facts. Facts are that human rights are being violated and war crimes are being committed. Facts are that over 30,000 people have been killed in 5 months. Facts are that 70% of those are women and children. Facts are that 17,000 children are now orphaned in Gaza, and facts are that over 70,000 tons of bombs have been dropped on one of the most densely populated areas in the world. Facts are that 1.9 million people are now displaced, and there is nowhere safe in Gaza to go. So no, I don't care about the feelings of people who go to sleep at night without fear of bombs raining down on them. Ask yourself, why are you considering feelings over humanity? Are feelings worth your silence on genocide, war crimes, and human rights violations? Is it worth the shame you will feel years from now knowing that you were complicit? Because I promise you, you will never look back on this and say, I wish I hadn't spoken up for Palestine. The Vice President has already called for a temporary ceasefire, but 6 weeks is not enough. We need a permanent ceasefire, and we need it now. I'll ask you again to please speak for us, put a resolution on the agenda, call for a permanent ceasefire, and end the aid to Israel. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz.
Hi, my name is Diana. I'm a 3-digit resident of Nevada City. Today is day 159 of the genocide of Palestinians. According to one source, in the past 24 hours in Gaza, 88 Palestinians were killed and 135 injured. This estimate can be assumed to be underreported. I get a daily update with a similar staggering number every day. Yesterday, the numbers were 72 killed and 129 injured. The day before, 67 killed, 106 injured. I come here today for the 6th time requesting that you add a ceasefire resolution to the agenda, including a demand for immediate humanitarian aid to Gaza and the condemnation of anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and all of other forms of hate. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana.
Okay, looks like the last 3. Ian, Olivia, and Lilith Young.
My name is Ian. I guess I'll start by saying that I'm really disappointed to see a lot of the tactics that we've been aware of in movements for a long time being used to discredit this movement, like the division they're trying to be sown among us, claiming that we're not a unified coalition, or saying that the people responsible for all of the progress we've made are disruptors that are the reason, like the people holding us back. It's just kind of really hard to listen to. Really disappointing coming from people that really want to be like seen as being on our side and being in favor of social justice and wanting this movement to happen if only we do it right. Like, I'm sure you can imagine how that feels. It doesn't feel good. We hear a lot about disruptions that happened early on. I guess from our perspective, it was a lot more disruptive to have to hear this racist propaganda about sexual violence than it was to have people walk out of a room where that's happening and not being addressed or censored or asked to move on from. That's just our perspective. Main thing I wanted to say was to go on record and say that I believe that the way that we've been presented this community process for April doesn't seem helpful for our community. It seems like dangerous. It seems like a dangerous precedent to set for when these issues arise, that what we're going to do is invite everyone to the table, even the people that are arguing for dehumanization and for genocide. I don't know that I can convince you to go with something else because you've made it pretty clear that that's what you intend to do. Just want to let you know that it's disappointing and sad. If this meeting happens, I would encourage you to do the very best to establish ground rules about facts and establish how dangerous it is to pretend that people opposing genocide and people covering for it are equal sides that deserve equal weight in a discussion. Just please keep that in mind. Like, we all know that the framing, the narrative about this thing is the most important piece worldwide. The bombs aren't affecting us here, but the rhetoric that we hear is affecting us here. And like, that is the part that you can control, the rhetoric that's being platformed in your community, what you're doing to frame this discussion. So please do it in a way that is not more harmful.
Thanks, Ian.
I am not wanting to seem rude by not looking at you guys very much. My heart rate is 140 beats per minute. I feel like my ankles are gonna give out. I hate standing up here. Every fiber of my being thinks that this is bad for me to be in this environment. But it's really important that we keep coming here and speaking. My name is Olivia, I'm a downtown resident. I'd like to read a quote from Bisan, a Palestinian woman in Gaza, from a video that she posted on day 152 of the genocide. She said, "Every day, every hour, every minute, and every second, each passing moment carries immense significance. In our lives as Gazans, minutes and seconds hold considerable value. A moment or second can spell the difference between life and death, survival and displacement, satiety and hunger. It's crucial to contemplate the fleeting nature of time because the threat of violence looms unpredictably." End quote. I'm also concerned about not only the safety level of our community should this meeting in April occur, but I'm also concerned about prioritizing the alteration or precedent of a white supremacist system, such as the government body. Inherently, by design, this is a white supremacist system, and prioritizing it over the lives of Palestinians all over the world who are asking us to do anything and everything that we can right now really isn't sitting right with me. I struggle to imagine how community healing can look while platforming those who are advocating and defending a genocide, but I hope that the council denounces genocide so strongly that they can put the resolution on the agenda and have community conversations that need to happen on their own time after the resolution is passed. I also want to add that it is incredibly unfair to be at the mercy of how this council and these council members deem the correct way to protest. That's not fair, and that should not weigh on your decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Olivia.
Hello, my name is Lilith Krimsky. I am an Ashkenazi Jewish woman, and I am calling for a ceasefire now. Only a few generations ago, my family survived. Many did not. They did not survive. The Shoah, one of the most abhorrent genocides in modern history. My family knew then as I know now. Never again means never again for anyone, anywhere. That includes my Palestinian cousins. A mitzvah, most commonly interpreted as a good deed, are the series of tenets most of us live by. One of the greatest mitzvahs is the freeing of those from bondage. Right now, my obligation is to the Palestinian people in freeing them from the bondage of brutality and injustice. Tikkun olam is a concept that translates directly into repairing the world. It is our duty to commit to repairing and improving on a grand scale. As the idea goes, the world is broken and human beings must fix it. Whether through social justice, political activism, direct action, or ethical behaviors, it is my responsibility to help repair and improve this world for all its inhabitants. My duty is to Palestinians. My family and I refuse to be on the side of history that stays silent and endorses annihilation. We did not survive genocide to turn a blind eye to anyone else's. I do not want my tax dollars funding bombs that make orphans and have murdered more than 30,000 people. I demand humanitarian aid reach the tired, the poor, and the huddled masses yearning to breathe free in Gaza. People wonder how the Holocaust could have possibly happened. How did it get to that point? How could we allow innocent men, women, and children to be murdered? Why didn't anyone step in? We see now exactly how and why. By complacency. By silence and maintaining comfortability over morality. Another abhorrent genocide is underway, funded by our money and okayed by our politicians. This is a turning point for every single one of us. Which side of history will you be on? Be the difference and make a change. Ceasefire now.
Thank you for your comment. Okay. All right. Thank you all for your public comments. And we are going to move on to the consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine in nature and will be approved by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. Before we take action on the consent calendar, we will hear any public comment on consent calendar items only, including any requests to pull consent items. Do we have any public comment on the consent calendar, on a consent item? No.
It's coming up.
You'll recognize it when you hear it. All right, now I am looking for a motion in a second to approve the consent calendar.
I so move.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Cece and a second by Councilmember Klein. Are there any objections to this motion? Okay, I'm hearing none, so the motion carries. Moving right along to item number 6 on the calendar, which is to conduct a public hearing on the city's fiscal year 2023-2024 proposed mid-year budget by consideration of resolution number 2024-05, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Nevada City adopting fiscal year 2023-2024 mid-year budget. Do we have Stephen on the line?
He's on there.
Stephen is our interim assistant city manager and is going to tell us all about this year's budget.
Brittany's gonna
Hi,
join
Brittany,
us.
welcome.
If you don't know, Brittany has been promoted
Oh, he
from
must- okay.
our accounting technician position to a newly created finance supervisor position. And she will eventually be our finance manager. She's been working with Steve on all things, in this case, a mid-year and eventually audit. And then you'll see her again for our budget workshop and then for our budget. And then by next year, she will be doing it on her own with a little bit of help from Steve. And then Steve will be doing something else someday and she'll be running the show in finance. So, yeah. But this evening, she is here in a support role as the rest of us are as we get Steve on the line and pull up his PowerPoint.
Welcome, Brittany. Thanks so much for taking on all the new responsibilities and in the new role.
Opportunity.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm an avid note taker, so that's what I'll be doing while he's presenting, so that next year, my presentation will be just as good.
Excellent.
Bear with me, it's loading.
All right.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. I'm sorry I got kicked off Zoom.
Hi, Steve.
And good evening. My video here, I keep getting a message saying you cannot start your video because the host has stopped it. So I apologize I'm not on camera here.
Do you want me to share it, Steve, the PowerPoint?
That'd be great. Thank you.
Is it not sharing? This
I
one?
know, right?
Is it working?
All right.
Does that look right, Steve?
PowerPoints.
That's perfect. Thank you. So before you this evening is the fiscal year 23-24 mid-year budget review. So this is basically our half-year check-in to see how the city has performed year to date based upon the budget that the City Council adopted on June 14th of 2023. What I can say briefly before we get into the meat and potatoes here is that general fund revenues are anticipated to be up moderately, about 1% of the overall general fund budget. General fund revenues will be decreasing slightly, and your special revenue funds, which the city has many of, are seeing no reductions in revenues whatsoever, other than a small decrease in the gas tax revenue, which I'll discuss as we go through the slides here. Next slide, please. So briefly, the city's budget philosophy is that revenues and expenditures should be balanced on a current basis. The budget that was passed back in June meets that requirement, and the mid-year budget adjustments that are being proposed tonight also meet that requirement. And of course, the city's budget philosophy, again, stresses our capital improvement programs with an emphasis on streets, roads, and sidewalks. Next slide, please. So with respect to general fund significant revenues and resource items, the city's property tax revenues are estimated to increase by about 1.1%, or a little more than $18,000. And that's based upon revenues received year to date and an analysis of what is anticipated to be received by the city between now and the end of the fiscal year. Property tax in lieu of VLF kind of tracks your property tax revenues as well, but in this case, you're going to see an increase of about 2.4%, or a little more than $8,400 in an increase to revenues there. Additionally, property transfer fees are projected to increase by 9%. For the city, that's about $1,350 rounded. Your transient occupancy tax, otherwise known as the room tax, is anticipated to increase by about 3.9% of original budget, or just short of $20,000, which is great news for the city. You have wonderful hotels there. I stay in them all the time when I come up into town. So this is wonderful news. I'm glad to see that. And then finally, your franchises, which the city has 3, TV, electricity, and gas. Those 3 combined, we're projecting an increase of 12.2% in franchise revenues, or just slightly over 20 grand. Next slide, please. So as I had mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, gas tax revenues are projected to decrease by about 4%, or $7,900, and that's based upon an estimate from the California State Department of Finance. So a slight decrease doesn't impact any of our CIP projects that are being funded by state gas tax monies. Next slide, please. So as it pertains to operating expenditure changes, these are all changes that are going to occur within the city. So we're not asking for additional appropriations as I go through these items. We're just moving monies around. So the first one here is we're asking for a reallocation of funding from the Measure C fund in the city manager's department to the general fund in the city manager's department of $70,661. And the Measure C monies are going to be used to pay for the Grass Valley Fire contract rather than the Community Risk Reduction Officer. This gives us a little more leeway into how we
Steve, if you wouldn't,
Evan, our Community Risk Reduction Officer. So it's just a reallocation of monies from one fund to another, and from one department to another. But the overall monies within each department. The
Steve?
overall budget for fire and city manager remain the same.
Thank you, Steve. I don't want to interrupt, but this is Gary. I just wanted, because I stumbled over this earlier today myself. We now have 2 Measure Cs. And it's important to distinguish between them. And this is the old public safety Measure C for the existing revenues and is not connected to the new Measure C, which is passing, which would be another source of revenues. And I just wanted to provide that clarity because I made that silly sort of mistake earlier, and I just hope nobody else does. Thank you.
You're absolutely right, Councilmember Peterson. Thank you for making that clarification. Next slide, please. This next proposed expenditure change is to reappropriate funding from the Finance and Administration Department personnel savings accounts to the Commercial Street Project softscape improvements. Since we budgeted for new positions back in June as part of our adopted budget, but we had some personnel savings because those positions remained vacant for the first half of the fiscal year. So with Commercial Street softscape improvements potentially needing additional monies, staff believes it's prudent to take those personnel savings and fund the Commercial Street softscape improvements with these savings, these personnel savings. Next slide, please. The next proposed expenditure change is a request for an appropriation of $70,000 of ARPA monies, that's American Rescue Plan Act monies, to immediately advance several issues pertaining to the wildfire tax implementation plan. And I just want to point out that these, the ARPA monies have already been received by the city. So we have the money recognized as general fund monies, but held in a separate tracking account called ARPA. And they just need to be appropriated by the city council as we find uses for these funds. And that amount again is $70,000. Next slide, please. This proposed expenditure change resides solely in the Parks and Recreation Department. We're just requesting that $6,962 be transferred from the Parks and Recreation fixed asset account, general fund asset account, to the Parks and Recreation General Fund capital outlay account to accurately report the purchases of some pool lounge chairs and some commercial refrigerators acquired and or to be acquired by the Parks and Recreation Department down at the pool. Next slide, please. This slide looks a little cumbersome, and it is, but if I can remind the council and the citizens, back in December of 2023, the council approved a one-time bonus program for city staff. And this proposed budgetary entry is going to move monies from the Finance and Admin Department personnel savings to the various departments where some of those bonuses were paid out to cover any budgetary deficits within those departments. So again, to accurately reflect the costs of the bonuses by department. Next slide, please. So overall, the city is financially healthy. General fund revenues are anticipated to increase by $68,065. General fund appropriations or additional appropriations are zero. All those changes again that I previously went over are being done internally, so no new monies. Gas tax fund revenues are decreasing by $7,913. And then we're asking for an appropriation of ARPA fund monies of $70,000. So at this point, Staff believes that no further supplemental appropriations are anticipated for the balance of the fiscal year. So what we're presenting to you tonight should be everything that we need to carry out the council's policies and priorities. Next slide, please. In addition to the mid-year budget adjustments, staff is recommending a modification to the Parks and Recreation part-time salary schedule. And this is due to a couple of items. The first being that the minimum wage increased in California as of January 1st to $16 per hour. So we just want to ensure that our salary schedules tie out to that minimum wage increase. And secondly, the city staff believes that our main competitor in terms of part-time rates in Parks and Recreation is the YMCA. So the rates that are proposed in the salary schedule this evening are basically competitive with the YCMA pay rates at the Grass Valley Pool. Next slide, please. So this slide here represents items that are going to be needed to be considered in the future. And really, again, it comes back down to our ARPA monies. So we received a total of $753,068 in ARPA monies. And again, those ARPA monies were used to offset lost revenues due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Additional ARPA monies are anticipated to be appropriated here in the near future, either as part of our fiscal year 24-25 adopted budget process, or maybe even earlier. And the intent of these monies at this point are to address the approved strategic plan goals of the city. Next slide, please. So with that, staff respectfully requests that the City Council conduct the public hearing and adopt resolution number 2024-05, amending the fiscal year 23-24 city budget. And finally, adopting resolution 2024-06, amending the Parks and Recreation part-time pay schedule. That concludes my presentation this evening, and I'm available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Steve. As always, clear and seemingly concise, and something that's generally rather complex. Any public comment on this item? If you are looking to make a comment on our annual military equipment use report, that is item number 8. This is item number 6. Hi, Josh. Come on up.
Hi, did you know this sign's really useful for a lot of things? I have done quite a bit of work with Public Works, rather involuntarily, but I've got to say that shit sucks. It's not very fun. And also of the fire department, police department, Parks and Recreation, and Public Works, it's the least funded of all of them. And y'all should really pay them better. They don't get paid that well, and they should really be paid more. I'm a big advocate for workers' rights. I've got a union card. You should be paying them like a lot, more than you think you should be paying them. Again, people over profit. That includes the people working in Public Works. It also includes the people who are getting part-time pay for Parks and Recreation. $16 an hour is great. You're meeting minimum wage, but you should be paying them more than minimum wage and establishing a precedent that we care more about people than profit. Again, back to the sign. You should be paying them $20 an hour or more. I would suggest more. I think you should pay workers a lot, more than you think you should be paying them. Yeah, the last I checked, Public Works in last year's budget had $1.1 million allocated to it. I would say allocate more to that. Pay them more. Give them better benefits. More time off. Just more. You should give Public Works more.
Thanks, Josh.
Mikos Fabersoon. One question in the presentation, it talked about gas tax revenues decreasing, and I thought that the person that was speaking was going to explain that, and if he did, I missed it. But what was the reason for the decrease?
Thanks, Mikos.
Yes, I'm more than happy to address that with the council's permission.
Yes, please do, Steve. I was curious as to why also.
Yeah, so we budget our potential gas tax revenues based upon estimates provided to us by the State of California Department of Finance. So the original adopted budget estimates from June of 2023 were updated by the State Department of Finance in January of 2024. And across all the various sections of gas tax revenues, the State Department of Finance is estimating a slight, to us, would be a slight decrease of gas tax revenue. The reasons possibly being, lower, some price decreases at the pump, however slight those might be, reduced traveling, the acquisition of electric vehicles, the formulas for distribution of revenues based upon population calculations, things like that. There are a myriad of reasons why it could decrease. But again, for Nevada City, roughly approximately $7,000 it's money we would love to have, but it's not going to prevent us from any of the street-related CIP projects we have programmed.
Thanks so much, Steve. Stick around. We might have some questions from the table. Back to the table. Fellas?
Okay. You mentioned a TV franchise. What is that? One of our revenue streams is our franchises, electric, gas, and TV. What's our TV franchise?
It's Comcast. So
they're renting a tower from us?
No, their lines are either on poles or in the ground, and that makes it a franchisable circumstance because they're in the city right away. And so we have an agreement with them, and they have to pay us a certain amount to be able to do that. We have very, very limited control over them for that franchise, and by very limited, I mean essentially nothing. They're obligated to report some things to us, and that's it. Otherwise, they just are regulated by the CPUC. The same is true for the gas and the electric. It's because the gas lines are under the street in our right-of-way, and or the electricity is either in the street or on the poles in the right-of-way.
Thank you. I learn something new every day. Does anyone know what Grass Valley pays its workers and members at Memorial Park Pool? I think, Mikos, you and I were both there today. I swam my mile. Did you swim yours?
Don, who was up earlier, did a limited run salary survey of other locations, including the YMCA, when we were looking to configure this, and we are in most instances, and a couple of instances a little bit above, but by a little bit I mean 25 or 50 cents an hour. The pay scale starts at minimum wage, but that's for our cashier swim instructor, which is like what someone 18 years old, never had a job, starts out at the pool. They're going to quickly move up in our organization or choose to move on to other things. Whereas, for example, the lifeguard 1 swim instructor, our basic entry-level position starts at $18 an hour, and that is competitive with the YMCA.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve. Always good. I'm greatly impressed with your ability to project the budget over the course of the year. We always want to underestimate expenditures and overestimate revenues. No, other way around. But, but you're on the mark, the variation here, and this is one of the things that we learned to watch for in the budget, is the variation midterm compared to what was projected when the initial budget is done. We project for an entire year, and this is really our check-in to make sure that those projections are accurate and where we make any adjustments that are necessary. I think I'm hopeful about particularly the TOT, or the hotel tax. I think indicates well done. I also want to comment on the wisdom of how our ARPA funds have been managed. You always hear me say I've been doing this a long time, but rarely do you ever see money with so few strings attached to it, and that we're using that money judiciously to advance important issues in our community. So I really respect the way that that's being done. So again, great job, Steve. We've worked a long time to get in this position where we can understand our budget and communicate it. And you've been a great big part of that. So I thank you for that. And Josh, we don't pay any of our employees enough money, but we also don't have any profits. As a government budget, we do not generate profits. And in fact, we are bound by law to pretty much not do that, except in specific situations, enterprise funds, or a few other type options of property use. So what that means is when we pay more, when we balance this budget, in order to give people more, it means that we have to take from something else in order to do that. So in order to raise salaries, we would have to reduce services or reduce other salaries or positions. So that's kind of how it works. But I do certainly, as a public works person in the past, appreciate your sentiments very much. But I would also comment that this council in particular, under the stewardship of Sean and Steve, has given increases, unprecedented increases to employee salaries over the past few years, including bonuses, which are extremely rare in local government, in order to create an equitable pay environment to the best of our ability. Because we do care about our employees, and the truth is these days is that it still is an employees market. So retaining quality trained employees is in our community's best interest, and we care deeply about that, and I think have made some really good moves. But I appreciate your firsthand experience with that. I watch the folks all the time in Public Works, and they do an amazing amount of work. So I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Mr. Klein.
Yeah, Stephen, as always, so very clear that it makes it hard to come up with questions. I had some questions about the lifeguards and so forth, but that was asked by my colleague Lou. And I'll just echo again that it is important to pay people well enough to keep them here. We lost a good city planner to Grass Valley, and I hope we get to keep our current city planner for as long as possible. And paying people what they're worth, or as close to what they're worth as we can manage, is important. That's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I don't have anything additional to add. I'm looking for a motion to conduct the public hearing and adopt the resolutions.
Madam Mayor, if we
Yes.
could have a motion and a second for each resolution separately, just the way it is, and then a vote on each separately.
Great. I'm looking for that first motion.
I move that we, the public hearing is open? No, that we open the public hearing, approve the budget, adopt the budget.
Dean, you're back. Say something.
Hi. We're actually going to close the public hearing and move to the motion.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't aware of it. Yeah.
And that one would be resolution number 2024-05, resolution of the City Council of the City of Nevada City adopting fiscal year 2023-2024 mid-year budget.
Sorry, I didn't get to read that. So I moved it. So.
I second.
Great. We have a motion and a second. Gabby, can we get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Cece?
Yes.
Councilmember Klein?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Peterson?
Yes.
And Mayor Fernandez?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Great. Dean, can we get that second motion, please?
It's resolution 2020. I'm Dean consigliere this evening.
I noticed, of course.
It's 2024-06, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Nevada City adopting compensation for part-time hourly Parks and Recreation employees.
I move that we adopt that resolution.
I second.
Great, motion and a second. Gabby?
Councilmember Cece?
Yes.
Councilmember Klein?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Peterson?
Yes.
Mayor Fernandez?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
And finally, is that it?
That's it.
Oh, that's it. All right.
Thank
I thought
you.
it was 3 separate. All right, then, moving right along. We're moving on to business. Item number 7, consideration of a facility use. Brittany, thank you so much.
Thank you, Brittany.
Yes.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
I'm just trying to move right along.
Silent face.
Number 7, consideration of a facility use application for the band shell and portions of Pioneer Park by the Miners Foundry, including an extended hours request for the Jerry Bash concert on August 3rd, 2024. Dawn, tell us about it.
Good evening, Council. Dawn Sidonis, Parks and Rec Manager again. So the Jerry Bash, which I'm gonna guess you are all familiar with, but if you're not, it's been held at the park for several years. In the staff report, you'll notice that it says it's the upcoming one is the 28th annual. It has not been at the park that long, but it has been at the park for several years. And so in the past, what we have asked renters to do if they wanted to go past 10 p.m. or past the 4 hours is go knocking door to door and say, would you approve this? And people would sign and write yes or no. It wasn't a very effective system, like the timing, finding people at home, all of that. And so if renters wanted to go longer than 4 hours of consecutive music, or have any exceptions to the policies that we have in place now, they need to come to you all for that approval. So the Jerry Bash plan is to be the same as it has been since it's been at the park, and so they're just coming tonight to ask for that ability to go longer than 4 consecutive hours. It's got the schedule there in the staff report, setting up on Friday, sound check times, when the gates open at 2, and music will play till they have 9:59, so even before the 10 o'clock cutoff. And then they're cleaned up and out of there by midnight. I don't think anyone from the Foundry is here. No. So, but I'll take any questions.
Great, Don, thank you so much. We're going to go to public comment first, and then we'll come back to the table. Any public comment on this item? All right, bringing it back to the table. Thoughts, comments, questions?
I mean, a 4-hour Grateful Dead show would be too short. So this is essential. I think we all know that Jerry's actual birthday was August 1st, but just because of necessity, this is going to be held on the 3rd, and that's fine. I'm fine with it. Gary, what do you think?
Is he allowed to speak?
You may, yes.
May I? Yes. Well, a couple things. I'm thrilled at the return of the Deadbeats, one of my favorite local drummers, Robbie Kopp, who I have a long history with. And I am not opposed to the hours, nor am I opposed to the extension. And some of you don't know this. I mean, I actually live like right next to it. But I just, I think it's important to acknowledge that, yes, the music goes from 2 to 10, but the setup begins on Friday, and the sound checks begin, and the takedown and breakdown comes, is 2 hours longer. So really, you're living with it for about 24 hours. But it's still okay. It's a tradition in our community, not one that I oppose. I wish smoking, the no smoking policies were more. I just get 2 stones standing in my backyard with that mushroom cloud of cannabis that rises out of this event. But otherwise, I'm good.
Gary, you did buy a house on the park.
Yeah, I know that, and that's why I'm not opposed to it.
I meant the getting high part. Thanks, Gary. Lou?
I have no comments.
All right, and I have none. So with that, I'm looking for a motion to approve the application and extended hours request.
I move that we approve the application and the extended hours request.
I second.
Excellent. Gabby, roll call, please.
Councilmember Cece?
Yes.
Councilmember Klein?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Peterson?
Yes.
Mayor Fernandez?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Don.
Thanks, Don.
All right, moving on to item number 8, consideration of the 2024 Annual Military Equipment Use Report and annual review of the City of Nevada City Military Equipment Policy as adopted in ordinance number 2022-05 and Nevada City Police Department Policy 705 as required under California Assembly Bill 481. Chief Foss, please take it away for us.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. So my plan, I'll kind of discuss some of the history on this, why we're here today, what we're looking for exactly, and then I'll leave it a little bit vague to make sure we can get all the questions that anybody might have to it. So what we're talking about today, it stems from AB 481, which was signed by Governor Newsom into law in 2021. And what it does is it basically puts a lot of authority and power into city councils or municipalities before we do any purchasing for anything that's deemed military equipment. If I refer to my notes here, what that includes several things, but before using, purchasing, raising funds for or acquiring any military equipment. Those, I'm not going to go over them all unless you ask, but those can include everything from an armored vehicle to drones, which we do not have, to explosive breach tools, to many things that I would argue are probably not necessary for law enforcement, especially law enforcement here in Nevada City, maybe in some other areas, but there was organizations or law enforcement that was purchasing those items where the community was not fully aware. The intent behind AB 481 is before we purchase any of those items or use any of those items, that we do have to bring it forward to the city council for approval. So the only item that we do have in our inventory that does fall in this criteria, the very last bullet point, is kinetic energy weapons or munitions. What that does include is beanbag rounds. Beanbag rounds are a less lethal option that law enforcement has that is deployed from a shotgun, a 12-gauge shotgun, and it shoots what it sounds like, an actual beanbag. They're used, I could give some scenarios of when they would be used. They're very limited use of what they'd be used for, but when they are necessary or when they would be used, they are life-saving. So the idea behind them is we would use this tool as opposed to a firearm. And again, they would be limited use, but they are critical, I think, in any law enforcement to be used to try to save a life. And we do have some of those. We have not deployed any in the last year. We have not purchased any in the last year. I don't know when the last purchase was. I believe it was before my time, about 3 years ago. We currently have about 90 beanbag rounds in our possession, between 50 and 90. Every patrol car has a beanbag deployment device and 5 rounds, so that's around 50 rounds right there. And then we have an additional 30 that we use for training. We probably shoot, in training purposes only, maybe 20 rounds every 2 years, and that would be for training purposes only. So I did bring one of the, when they say beanbag rounds, they look like a little hockey sack, and that's exactly what they look like. We could pass it around so you could feel it and see what it is. And I could talk about what the idea is for these, but these are used instead of a bullet, they would strike the individual. I'll give some scenarios if you would like to hear of when we would like to use them. You're nodding, so I'll just jump into it. Again, this would be very limited. But if we have a scenario, say you go into a situation where you have a person in a controlled zone, but maybe they're armed with a knife, right? A knife, we would all agree, can be used as a lethal weapon that can stab somebody, that can critically injure or kill somebody very easily. Thousands die from it every year. I'll give you a scenario that I was personally involved in. We had an individual at the top of some stairs. He had no shirt on, he was armed with a knife. There was 6 other apartments upstairs. He was right at the top of the stairs. We couldn't let him come down. He was very aggressive. We were worried about the apartments behind him if he was going to make entry into them. He had no shirt on, so ideally, many times you'd say, well, tase him. We didn't want to tase him because then he's going to fall down the stairs. And if he's holding a knife while he gets tased and falls down the stairs, that could be lethal. So we deployed a beanbag round into him. They hit him 2 times with the beanbag round, highly effective. It hurts a lot. He dropped the knife. He probably thought he was shot. He was not. And then we were able to handcuff him, and everybody was, the day ended very good. He was not injured, other than some bruising. We were able to disarm him, control the scene. It's used a lot in knives, when knives are in play.
For clarity, that was not in Nevada City.
That was not in Nevada City, no. I don't believe we've had any beanbag deployments in Nevada City. don't hold me to that, but I don't believe we've ever had some in the history of Nevada City. But it is one of those things, again, where if you need it, you want to make sure you have it, especially when it could save a life. So any questions on that?
Any other questions?
The term military can be contentious. Is that just this list of things this particular act is going to call military?
Correct. I love the law. I hate the verbiage on it because it does sound like I'm seeking for militarization of law enforcement, which I'm actively against. I think everything I've brought in, shows that I'm trying continuously to go back to community policing. And this law is actually to prevent the militarization. So law enforcement, when I started, for example, we got a lot of stuff from military surplus. Not here in Nevada City, again, I've been here 18 months, this would have been my previous life. And it wasn't really regulated. And so I do support this. I do think that this is a great idea that we do meet here annually and we talk about some of the equipment that we're using. I'd also like to point out, I made sure I brought some business cards. I have no problem discussing any of our equipment with anybody. The way I look at it, I'm a steward for this. It is our police department, but it's a community's police department, and everybody should be very aware of the equipment we use and our idea behind it. And if somebody disagreed, I'd love to have that conversation. But yes, it is what the law is called. It does sound like it's militarization. It's actually trying to prevent militarization of law enforcement. And the bullet points that are in I can read them if you like, they're in the packet of all the equipment. Some of it is has no business being in law enforcement. 50 caliber ammunition, if anybody knows what that is, that's a massive round, has no business being in law enforcement. I would need your approval before I bought that. I promise you I will never come here and ask to buy 50 caliber anything. Battering rams, slugs, or breaching apparatuses that are explosive in nature. I've never seen those in law enforcement. I'm sure they're used in some occasions. Again, these are not things that we're going to be asking for in Nevada City as long as I'm here. And it goes on to armored vehicles. The only thing, I think I mentioned it last year, that we might have a discussion on one time, if we want to talk about it, would be drones. And even drones, in my view, would be a little bit different than what a lot of agencies use them for. Mine would be more almost like we did with the K-9 program. How can we use it to find people when they're in danger? Or the last year in the heavy snowfall, drones would have been great to see if there was any roofs that were being impacted. We're not looking at that in the near future, so I probably shouldn't even bring it up now. But that's about the only thing on this list that I might come to you in the far future to discuss.
Great, thanks, Chief. I'm going to withhold any further questions from the table and go to public comment, and then we'll come back to the table. Opening up public comment on this issue. Ethan, you ready?
Yeah. Actually, I feel like that answered a lot of my questions. It's my understanding that there was an armored car in the city's possession. Was that the county or the city that had that?
So real quick, public comment, unfortunately, we can't have a dialogue, but if you want to give your 3-minute public comment and ask questions, and then we can then advocate for those questions to the
So
the
is this
chief.
different
It's
than when
just
people were able to ask questions before on the presentations?
You can ask questions, but you can't have a dialogue. You can't engage in a dialogue.
Okay, well then I'm gonna see if other people can ask questions and then come up if I have any further questions.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Hi again. I'm pleased to hear from the chief that he's opposed to militarization of our police department. I think that's a wise move, and I fully support that. Thank you.
Thanks, Mikos. Any other public comment?
It's more just questions. I'm not sure if this is something that would able to be amended, or if it's kind of like all together or nothing. I would just be interested, as I'm also pleased to hear that we don't want to militarize our police, if we could actually remove certain items from being asked at all. Like the chief of police did say that he would never come to you to ask for certain things. If it would be possible to just be like, those aren't welcome here, period, but we will never purchase those. If that could be something that could be put on, I think just to safeguard our future, just in case the future chief of police doesn't feel the way that he feels, keep our city safe from continued militarization. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie.
Yep, I want to second that. It was very nice to hear that this policy is not going to be like used for further militarization, but it would nice to be have policies in place that explicitly exclude our city police department from spending money on military equipment. Even things like beanbag shotguns, it like may seem ridiculous that they're classified as military equipment, but less lethal is not better in my mind. And they can still be lethal. Like a week ago in Fullerton, Southern California, a man was killed from a beanbag shotgun injury. So it is something that we take seriously. And we also know that militarization is a trend which doesn't stop at things like beanbag shotguns. I would rather us be speaking out against this now than when it's, you know, like a MRAP, like some other agencies around here have. So,
thanks, Ian.
I want to echo the last public comments, but I also wanted to say in the future conversation about drones, it definitely sounds like something that search and rescue should have, for sure. That should not be used by law enforcement. And I also wanted to add with the beanbags that I would imagine that the sheriff's department has something similar, a less lethal option. Maybe that they also keep in their cars, and that Sage Crawford was shot and killed in front of her children when she had a knife. And so I don't feel like those beanbags are even an appropriate thing to spend money on, because are you going to run back to your car and get it? If it's not being carried, that's not what you're going for. You go for your gun. So I just wanted to say that I agree that there should be no militarization of our police force, period, at all, ever. Thank you.
Thank you, Olivia.
Hey guys, yeah, I just wanted to say I do appreciate the sentiment of demilitarization of the police. Just a little curious about the things that didn't seem to be on that list, like assault weapons and just a regular side carry firearm and things like that. You know, body armor, things that are pretty military. Whether or not those are actually kind of coming down from a military second use, or is that a direct purchase that's, you know, manufactured for police? Or, I mean, to me that would seem like a military item. And if there was ever any kind of discussion about maybe going to a more European model of less armed encounters, I'm a real big advocate of the Cahoots model. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that group out of Eugene, Oregon, but it's a non-armed psychiatric and medical professional responding to a lot of you know, majority of kind of mental health and crisis calls that are coming in. It's a huge percentage of their 911 calls, and it's been really, really effective. And on the also the ARPA money sitting there, and it's no strings attached. That, I mean, I've been calling people in both cities and the county to try and get some of that ARPA money to go to a Cahoots program with pretty much no interest. So I think that it could really unburden the police. It's proven to save a ton of money when people respond in that way. And yeah, and I also would just caution against drones. I feel like they're being really abused by a lot of police. It's really hard not to be seduced by I can see everywhere all the time, and especially, yeah, like we said, safeguarding in the future against maybe some bad actors. Having that kind of technology available is really tempting to look at everything all the time, and I don't think we really need that in this community. I don't think it's for our benefit. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Zach. Any other public comment on this item? All right, bringing it back to the table. More questions, comments, concerns?
Does the chief want to address anything, if you, however much you can remember of what was just asked, that you might be able to give some response to?
Yes, of course. That's okay. They don't have to ask the question directly? Okay. Yeah, help me out if I do forget the question here. So I'll start from the last one asked, because it's fresh in my mind. So as far as regular firearms or vests, bulletproof vests or ballistic vests, those are not considered military equipment. There is some things that would be a question of, I can understand completely how it gets confusing. Basically, where it breaks it down with one exception is with the exception of standard issue firearms. So standard issue firearms that law enforcement use every day are not considered military equipment. That basically means where we're at right now as a law enforcement, we can't expand beyond that without coming to a city council because it would be a violation of 481. Does that make sense? Does that kind of explain it? So right now, every department doesn't necessarily carry the same style or model handgun, but they all carry a handgun as their standard issue firearm. Virtually all law enforcement, we do not, but virtually all law enforcement carries a lethal shotgun as well in their patrol vehicle. We do not use that, and a lethal rifle in their patrol vehicle as well. We do have a rifle in all our patrol vehicles. Instead of the lethal shotgun, we have the less lethal beanbag shotgun. That's why it's always been a little confusing to me where they designate that as a 481 item when it's a less lethal option.
As a tag to that from a legal perspective, just for public's note and the council's note, is that the legislature is the one that created the term military, and even though we don't like that, that's by statute what we have to list and use, and similarly, while the city certainly selects what equipment it is going to purchase and deploy, hence this process here, we do not have any control over the definition of what is military equipment. The legislature also has delineated that in a list.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Dean.
The drones for search and rescue, I couldn't agree more. That's what I would ideally like to use them for. We have, for Nevada City, shifted in that direction. Our canine program, Ruby, wonderful Ruby. She is a search and rescue dog. There is search and rescue for the county as well, but when you are talking about search and rescue, every second is critical. And I think it's super important. You probably just read recently, when we have an incident where somebody's missing and time is of the essence, calling in search and rescue from other agencies does take generally hours, not minutes or moments. It takes hours, and it usually involves me to be speaking to another department head, making the request, getting the call in. So we are transitioning towards that, but I do agree that that's what I would love to use that for, as a search and rescue or protection for the community as opposed to anything else. But I do understand the concern with it, so it would be a talk that we would have before we ever went down that road. The armored vehicle or military vehicle, I don't believe Nevada City's ever had one, primarily because I don't know where we park it. But I don't think we've had one and they're exceptionally expensive to maintain. They're expensive to operate. We don't have the manpower or the personnel to man or operate an armored vehicle. The county likely
Nor
has
do we
one.
need one.
Nor do we need one, yes.
The one that people normally see is the white. They had a mine clearing one that was military surplus, and then they have a Bearcat that is a purpose-built one. And so you'll see them at fairs and activities. We don't have that. We don't need that. But
Correct.
People sometimes, because it's in Nevada City, they think it's ours. So.
Yeah, and I think that's all the questions, unless you can remember any other ones up there or have any additional.
So this is considered less lethal as opposed to just buckshot, I suppose, just standard.
Correct. And there was a comment on somebody was fatally injured. I'm not.
Yeah, this last week.
Okay. And it does happen, unfortunately. I'm not going to say just because it's less lethal doesn't mean that
Not
accidents
lethal.
can happen. Its intended purpose is to be less lethal. So you're using it with the intended purpose of being less lethal. Again, we've never deployed it. And why? Because we are very aware that best case scenario, somebody's going to be injured. So it is a last resort option.
Yeah.
But it is, generally speaking, a better option than a firearm, than a standard firearm.
And the only time you've used this since you've been here is for training. And I would hope and imagine that training involves don't shoot someone in the neck with one of these or something.
Correct.
Yeah.
We go over very extensive training about, and we even put up dummy targets to show actually from certain ranges how dangerous this is, to show the optimal range, to make sure you're staying far enough away that it's not causing dramatic injury as best we can. So.
Great. Is this this presentation and everything, are you asking for us to spend anything right now? Do we have enough in stock that we don't need to spend any more right now? You're just letting us know we still have this, we just haven't used it, hopefully won't.
So per the law, I have to present to you per AB 481, whether we purchased or not.
Yeah.
And so every year I have to come to you. So this is going to be on the agenda every year in March. I'll be coming to you with the same thing. Hopefully I'm not asking to buy anything, but if I buy, use, or don't, I still have to come here and we have to have this discussion regarding 481.
I remember it last year, and it's heartening to
It was
know
in
you
March.
haven't used any, yeah. Great. Thanks, Chief.
Lou, Gary?
No, all my questions were answered. Thank you.
Yeah, so, it was interesting to hear that we do not field actual lethal shotguns, which is the standard. And the double-aught buck is a lot different than a beanbag. I wanted to comment we've done a lot of work in our community to align our police department with the values of the community. And Chief, you've been just a champion for that, and it matters a lot. And part of that is about not being militarized and being appropriately equipped to match the potential threats in our community. Yet, as I look at the reports we received from time to time, including one we received today about the weapons that you take off the street, cut down automatic assault rifles with extended clips, which I believe came off the street today or yesterday. Today is what we face in Nevada City in our police department. And if it were up to me, we would never have guns, but that's that horse left the barn last century or something. But I think it's important to understand that we need to match the equipment with the needs. And it's also very active at one point in a community with the legislation that we're now enacting. Because police departments, it was post 9/11 when we militarized everything, and some of the stuff that we saw coming into communities was just freaking unbelievable. So this is, I'm glad to hear. So it makes sense to me that with the beanbag versus the lethal shotguns that are normally deployed. So I'm good with this. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm really pleased that part of this, part of the assembly bill was that council, anything before purchase, council has to approve. Question, how many times to your knowledge in the you would know, in the last year have Nevada City police officers deployed their weapons?
As in fired? So technically deployed is even just drawing, but as in fired, we have not. We have not, outside of training, we have not fired our weapons in any way on the street.
Right. And I imagine that's because we don't have the type of crime that requires something like that.
The type of crime, and I'd also say the training. I mean, even today, as you saw, we do have dangers in our community, but we have exceptional officers, and we're really working on the training, and a lot of times through communication or other means, you can accomplish those things without having to deploy your weapon. And that's what we're always striving for. But also, yes, very much, we don't have the crime, thankfully, that some communities do. My previous life had a lot of crime, and we don't have that here. And through good communication and through proactive policing, in my mind, and COPS program and community policing, you maintain that. And I think here we are. We do everything we can to keep everybody as safe as we can.
And you used the term community policing earlier. Can you just tell us a little bit more about what that is? I mean, I know what it is, but just for the record.
So to me, that gets into I could be here all day talking about it, but I'm going to keep it very brief, and I'll tell you what it means to me. Part of it, what it means is servant policing. And what I mean by that is understanding that I work for the community. I work for you. I am a servant to the community. And what the community needs and what they want to see is what I'm going to strive every day to make sure we're trying to provide. I don't want to say we lost that because I love my profession. I think it's an honorable profession, but sometimes it did get milky and confusing to some degree. But I'm a big advocate of it. So being with our community, having very open communication with everybody, knowing what sometimes I won't be aware of what's going to bother part of the community or what their angst are, or what they're worried about even in my own police department, until I have that communication, until I build that rapport where they feel welcome enough to say, hey, this is what I'm worried about. And then we can have that conversation. And even if we don't see eye to eye, hopefully we have built enough of a rapport to understand where we're both coming from. Again, that's why I brought my business cards here. We can talk about anything we have at the police department. So for me, community policing, if I summed it up very simply, it would be servant policing. I consider myself a steward of this police department, which is servants of this community. And it's and I'm honored to be that. I think it's something that very few can do, to be a servant for everybody. And again, today, I couldn't be more proud of the officers that got that firearm off the street. And that's part of the reason too, though, that we will always make sure we're doing the balance of keeping our department safe. That weapon that was pulled off the street is probably more effective than the weapons we have. That was and it was considered a ghost gun, doesn't have a serial number on it. It was in possession of a felon. It was loaded, ready to go. It's an assault rifle. It's a short-barreled assault rifle.
With a collection of methamphetamine.
With methamphetamine. It had an optic on it, which is an enhanced sight on it. That is an extremely dangerous weapon. And if we didn't have the training we had, and if the officers weren't able to contain that quickly, that could have ended very disastrously for a lot of our community. So it's always a balance that we're trying to achieve. We definitely don't want to go down the road of militarization, but we want to keep everybody safe. But I think we're achieving it here. And by this discussion, I think this goes a long way to keeping it that way.
Thanks, Chief. I appreciate you taking the time to define that in your own words. And I know that you and I have had lots of conversations, some hard conversations about policing. We've had conversations about, national narratives around policing and experiences. And also a lot of conversations about right here, people in this room who were with me on August 9th in 2020 and their experience of our police department at that time. And so I appreciate the people in the room's concern, because I see several faces in this room that were with me on August 9th. And that's something that you and I have talked about more than anything, probably. And how do we make sure something like that doesn't happen again? And I appreciate all your efforts towards that. And I appreciate the people in the audience who weighed in tonight. I think this is really, really important stuff. I do appreciate that there is this mechanism that all purchases have to come through the council. And I'm just curious from the chief, Dean, Sean, people at the table that have experience in other places or just know of precedent in other places. Do you know of city policies that have been instituted to specifically demilitarize police or to prevent from future purchases of certain equipment?
Well, from a legal perspective, certainly the council can issue statement positions and policy positions. It's a little, and then now with this particular legislation, have the ability to approve or not approve what's been defined as military equipment. So I think that the role that the council would have would be from a policy perspective, giving what their focus should be and what our vision is, or what your council's vision is for the department in terms of actually regulating operations and tactical decisions. Is typically not policies that come from the policy makers, but come from those who are trained in what's needed when. Once they have the tools that you authorize or don't authorize. I'm not sure that answered your question, but.
I think it does, and I literally asked out of curiosity. It came up. I'm always wanting to know what, to further define our role and our capacity. And so, yeah, thanks you guys.
Thank you. So I'm going to approve this, right? Yep.
All right, so next I'm looking for a motion to receive the presentation, or I'm looking for a motion to approve the continued use of the equipment without change.
So move.
Second.
Excellent. Gabby, roll call, please.
Councilmember Ceci?
Yes.
Councilmember Klein?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Peterson?
Yes.
Mayor Fernandez?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Great. Thank you all so much. Number 9. All right, we're going to take a 5-minute break, folks. It's 8:09. We'll meet back, actually a 6-minute break at 8:15. Lori Oberholzer, please take a seat. I thought it would be fun to say that. All right, welcome back, folks. Item number 9, consideration of the selection of seating and planter elements to be installed on the Commercial Street Reconstruction Project, presented by our city planner, Lisa McCandless. Take it away, please.
Hello.
Hi.
Thanks for having me, Council.
Can you move the mic a little closer to you?
Yes. So I will start by just showing you the current design and the design that's sort of been on the table for the last couple of months. And then we can sort of go through a few of the process pieces. So this is what I came up with. I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting this project to be as tricky as it was, and I didn't think it would be as hard as it was to sort of come up with something that was visually appealing. I found that to be quite challenging. But here is the current design. It's just a zoom in of Brian's site plan. I did fly the drone, and the imagery came out really just not helpful at all. It was the roof lines on Commercial Street are so bright white that I couldn't get a strong contrast for the streetscape. So that proved to be sort of not too valuable. So I'll come back to the map, but I will say that the proposed project would give a visual effect of something like the effect that you would see on the right. The Planning Commission reviewed items and their materials and style at their December meeting. And then in January, we went over placement and spent several hours on placement for benches and very little time on actual placement of planters. There was a lot of discussion around trees as well. The recommendation by the Planning Commission at their January meeting, we did come up with them making a recommendation for 4 benches total. 3 of them would be backed. I'll show you the map again here. 1 would be at Three Forks along the building. That would be a backed bench. 1 bench along the curb at Three Forks. That zone is a nice wide sidewalk. I consider that a real opportunity zone. A lot of people gather down in that area as well. And I will say that the bench that's on the curb was discussed as a singular item for quite a long time by the commission. Next to the bench on the Three Forks wall, I do have a planter proposed, and I've got an image for you to kind of show what that would look like. I have a planter proposed on the curb at the Fern. That was originally closer to the crosswalk, but per Rod Brown's recommendation of not having it visually impair the sidewalk or crosswalk, I moved it back a bit. And then a bench at Kaya's Naturals and a bench at the Crystal Shop. The commission went back and forth for quite a while discussing that as well. There's 2 options. There could be 2 benches closer side by side at the Crystal Shop, or sort of more like it's shown there. And then a planter near closer to the corner up by J.J. Jackson's. And then 2 planters that are a little bit different of size and shape on the Soul Crafts store frontage and Two Little Birds Children Boutique. So the planter on the bottom right is what the commission liked at the December meeting, either something like that or like the all steel planter. Specific requests, if we do include planters, were for historic looking materials, obviously something that doesn't scream new or recently purchased from a box store. And then also durability. For the planters, the steel feet and edging was preferred by all commissioners at that meeting. And the benches, we talked about durability. There were discussions on potential for a granite bench, but at the January meeting, the commission did decide that this was the most functional and most durable product that the city could install on the street there, or sidewalk. And then I'll show you the two sizes for the planters here. This rendering shows sort of what the bench planter combo could be. I do think that some flexibility when we go, if we go to place these items, would be necessary, because it may be that the true placement for that planter, if it's paired with the bench, would be on the uphill side. And then same with the one on the curb there. It may be better a little bit closer to the crosswalk. So that's sort of the standard size, and I did create some mock-up 2x4 planters, and they were out there at the workshop. And we took photos with those actual planters. So these that you see are the size of what is currently proposed, along with, actually I can't say with certainty that the bench is to scale, but I think it looks like it visibly is somewhat accurate. This is the other planter, just to give a little bit of variety, not have everything the same. It would be something taller like this. There's a pretty perfect little space right there in between Sushi Q and Soul Crafts for a taller planter like that. And then also to sort of screen that PG&E panel area on Two Little Birds. That shop owner would be very thrilled to have a planter in front of her store to sort of try to screen that. So I know there's a lot of words on this slide, so I'll just kind of go through it quickly. We did the workshop in early January. The majority of folks that were in attendance were in favor of some sort of landscaping features and greenery, flowers, planters, trees. There was definitely some opposition to planters from the Nevada County Historical Society and Lori Oberholzer. I'm sure that you'll hear their public comments here in a moment. At their December meeting, the recommendations on the finishes for the softscape elements were made. That meeting was just before Christmas, so everyone was definitely wanting to wrap up and leave the room. I was hoping to rediscuss the planters more at our January meeting, and we did not. The commission did not talk about the materials and finishes as they didn't want to make a recommendation on the planters. Our January meeting, lots of discussion. I looked back on the meeting today just to sort of remind myself of how it went and make sure that I wasn't holding too much of an opinion on how it all rolled out. There was about a 4-hour discussion on the Commercial Street project. I did look back and was reminded that about 3 hours and 45 minutes were regarding benches and the idea of trees, and then the last 15 minutes started talking about planters. So the recommendation on the benches, I already went over with you. Oh, I will say that when I rewatched the meeting, I remembered that there was sort of a question about whether the commission felt whether or not the planters were a necessary element on the streetscape. The way Tom and I described it to me when I had a phone call with him after was, we sort of felt like we were doing it just to do it. So I wasn't sure if there was just not enough visual tools, or if it truly is not a good place for planters and benches are more appropriate. So my design does still reflect the planters. as I did want to include them as they have been on the table for 6 years. I don't want to be the one to take them off. I also feel strongly that they would be an amenity that would bring an added interest and beautify the space. I don't think they're scary. I think that we can, if there is some hesitation and just be assured that if we were given the okay to build them, that we would build one and we would make sure that it was nice and that it was good and that it was going to work well before we just went and spent all the money. I did get a bid from Lester Enterprises for help on the planters. So for like the steel and wood look, it would be about $700 each. And then the benches are anywhere between $900 and $1,800. And then I know Sean wanted to have a little bit of money set aside for kind of roll out on if we need to provide like a wagon and some things to make the watering of the planters function better. So I am ready for questions and discussion.
Great. Thank you so much, Lisa. We will take public comment on this item first, and then we will come back to the council.
Hi, back again. Wasn't aware of this until like 10 minutes ago. I've got to say, I like plants. I like greenery. I think that's a good thing. Might be a bit bigger than you'll think about, but I say, why not just make all of it green? Put in a big garden where the road is. Not many people drive on it anyway. Yeah, I support this. I support more greenery, more plants. I think that's a good thing. We should have more gardens. Put a big garden on Commercial Street. That'd be cool. Yeah, put more plants places. They look cool. They're good for the environment. They sometimes make food that tastes good. So yeah, if you want my idea, just rip out all of that section of Commercial Street and put a big garden there. I'd garden there. Others probably would too.
Thanks, Josh.
If you don't do the Commercial Street garden, I would suggest that you use native plants in your planters. I think that there's an opportunity to frame that in a way where they understand that it is necessary. We have a huge crisis in our native pollinators, and these plants are extremely beneficial to the diversity of the land and are also incredibly beautiful. If you go up Loma Rica at the storage unit, they do commercial landscaping with native plants, and it's really beautiful. And there's really no reason not to, other than maybe price, but you could also do a community drive, like a seed drive in the spring, where you ask people, like, bring us your native plant seeds, and you could mitigate costs that way. I have a hard time seeing the plants that are in other city planters because they're invasive species, and some of them spread seeds and pollute our seed bank, and they don't make me feel good when I see them. And I think that native plants make everyone feel good and are, to me, a beacon that we care about this specific land that we're on. And to me, it's a symbol of stewardship. So I would really suggest that you do that, and you could collaborate with the California Native Plant Society Redbud chapter, which is our local chapter of the Native Plant Society. Thanks.
Thanks, Olivia.
Hello, everyone. I'm Stuart Baker from the Nevada City Chamber, and I took it upon myself today to meet with each of the merchants on Commercial Street, and I shared with them the packet, and I wanted to get their opinions on both the benches and the planters, because those are both the issues. Now, Lisa went and talked to each of the individual merchants about their own piece of property and how they felt on their spot, but I wanted to get their view of the whole thing, because these are the people that spend their days there, as well as their economic livelihood is dependent on how the first impression is for people visiting their stores. So I'll just go down the list really quickly so you can get a sense of each of these individual businesses and how they felt. So it'll be quick list, but hopefully I'll get them in all on time. Three Forks, absolutely in favor of benches. They were neutral on planters because of the issue of potential cigarette butts and the litter that exists in planters. Heartwood was enthusiastic about both benches and planters. Both felt that they build community. Kaya's Naturals, she felt that the benches she's okay with the planters, but she feels that the flower baskets on commercial, on the lampposts would actually be a bigger impact. And I know that's something that we've been talking about, putting the braces and the brackets that we need. So that would be something that we can look at as well. And she felt that the planters next to benches are the most appropriate use of the planters, but having the planters on their own looked a little less attractive. Nevada City Crystal and Glass, love the benches, like the planters, enhances the look of the street. Rose Market, can't imagine why greenery wouldn't ever be an issue, loves both. J.J. Jackson's, Teresa will speak on that point. Soul Crafts feels it would bring a lot of community, create and support a lot of community. Two Little Birds, I want to be more welcoming and have a reason for people to stay, so they liked both. The River downtown, which will be coming, they love both. Crazy Horse also was in favor of both, but also was concerned about the cigarette butts. And then lastly, the Fern was in favor of both. So this is the opinion of the folks that are really on the front lines on this issue that deal with the street every day. So that's it. And I know as far as the chamber's concerned, we've had booths on that street. And the reason we've put them on that street is because the street looks really dead when we have Victorian Christmas and other events. But Lynn said if we have planters and we have places for people to sit, that won't be necessary. So, so it won't be an issue as far as we're concerned in terms of logistics. So that's it. Thank you.
Stuart, thank you so much.
Hello, I'm Teresa Berliner-Mann, and I own J.J. Jackson's. And I'm going to hope I remember all the things that came up while Stuart was talking. First off, I want to say, Lisa, thank you for spearheading this, getting it to the end. This is long in the works, and we're very grateful to see that we might be at a place where something's actually going to happen. I'm all in favor of the benches, and I feel like I'm very comfortable with the way that they've been culled down. I think we now have 4, which seems like a very few number, but it's a great start. I also feel like planters are probably best suited against the buildings. So less of the right side picture and more of the left side picture. I hadn't thought of that before, but I do really appreciate a bit of greenery right next to a bench. I, for one, am not so concerned about cigarette butts because aren't we a non-smoking downtown?
Especially at Crazy Horse.
And then those are 2 drinking establishments that are concerned about that. And I totally get it, but it's not my concern. Also, with the hanging baskets, while I love those are really only appropriate in very particular spots. We don't have one anywhere near we have one up at the corner of Pine, so, within a storefront. But we always put baskets out in front of ours, and they may be nixed. I'm not sure about that. But if shops could put out their own baskets as well, that could be something, but against a building. I think keeping the ADA use is obviously requisite. And coming into play will be the sandwich boards and all these other things. But I think starting with creating benches and planters to warm up the metal benches is a great start. And I'm grateful for your effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa.
Good evening, honorable council members. I actually did not expect to be here tonight on this item. I'm here for another item, but I was asked to speak for the Historical Society. Dan Ketchum can't be here. And I don't know about you, but for me, this feels sort of like Commercial Street feels like a bad migraine or a case of poison oak that you think you've handled it and it just keeps coming back and coming back. And I hope we can handle it. I'd like to start by reminding the City Council that the Historical District is made up of more than just the buildings. It also includes the sidewalks and other elements that go into creating the ambience of the Motherlode era in our community. In the Historical Society's January 9th letter, we recommended that there be no planter boxes and in the Historical District because they were not in use in the Motherlode era on our sidewalks, and they would add clutter. And after the authentic visual appearance of this beautiful, it would alter it, or this beautiful Motherlode era street. And the Planning Commission did recommend that there be no uniform city-owned planter boxes, that they be individual containers up next to the stores, which brings into the planter boxes as shown are just sort of like this homogenized what you'd see anywhere. And if you have various planters up next to the storefronts, then you get a modern, kind of a vibrant feel, but without that just uniformity, because those never would have been there in the Motherlode era. So we would like to see the council vote to eliminate the planter boxes that are out on the curb, and others have spoken to that. And also to go with the Planning Commission's recommendation that they be various different kind of containers, not just the square boxes. And as I said, this would bring color and vibrancy to the look of Commercial Street while keeping it with the individuality of the buildings and what makes our historical district so special. And regarding the benches, we recommend that you stay consistent with what the Planning Commission decided and maybe eliminate the floating bench that's by the curb. That doesn't seem like it would be safe for traffic. And we're a little disappointed because
you can wrap
minutes,
up, Kathy.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Very
Okay.
aggressive.
Lori Oberholzer. I'm with Nevada City Neighbors. You have our letter, which was signed by a number of our members, and you've got our Savannah photo example that we sent to all of you of the individual merchant type planters, and excerpts from with a number of quotes from the Planning Commission January meeting were sent to you also because there weren't any notes or minutes or anything like that. So I'm mainly going to talk about the planters because that's the big difference between what the Planning Commission talked a lot about and what came out in the staff report. At the January meeting on the planters, they spent most of their time talking about the idea of flower planters that are varied in design, traditional in appearance, and provided by the merchants at their storefronts. They really, really liked this beautiful Savannah traditional example. And so I'm going to read you some of the things that the Planning Commission said. It was kind of the theme of the planter discussion. Wendy said, by proposing to council a pathway by which business owners can embellish with their own greenery within certain design guidelines, I think we are removing something that has been prohibited and we would see a lot of creativity around it. On the staff design, she noted, and again, these are direct quotes, what we're doing is framing it relative to the street, and it is just not going to jive with the architecture. Amy said on the staff proposal, I don't like the uniformity, and I think that the funkiness of Nevada City would be well cultured by putting it into the hands of shop owners. Tom, who's sitting out here tonight, said, no city-owned planters at this time. He said it a couple of times. And it could potentially add some wildness that could be a cool thing. The staff report tonight did not reflect this, and I know that's largely because they were being kicked out of the room after their 3.5 hours, and they had 15 minutes left, and they had to rush together a summary motion. So the specifics didn't come out very well in that motion. Instead, the staff report said that the Planning Commission recommended against the installation of planters on the sidewalk by the city. Well, that's like half correct. The thing it didn't do was report to you what the commission did recommend, which was just as many, but traditional, non-uniform flower pots by individual merchants. And they did not recommend the wood and metal boxes, and they did not recommend to start the planter project before this city council vote, which has happened. Consistent, well, you know, there was this summary motion, and I, oh, okay.
Thank you, Lori.
All righty.
We all feel for you with that.
We need to come up with a nicer beat, don't you think?
No, not for you, Chuck.
Next time. Hey, so my name is Chuck Durrett, and I've had an office on Commercial Street for 20 years now. You missed me, Stuart. I'm the oldest business on Commercial Street except for Callahan's, and he only beats me by a month or two. So, and I've had 6 to 15 employees for the last 20 years, and we use that, 22 years now, we use that street intensely, you know, at lunchtime and throughout the day. We kind of police that street, actually. Our employees, if there's a barking dog, we go down and give them some treats and one thing or another. 13 years ago, Amy Wolfson asked me to do a little design for Commercial Street, and she got me agendized on the city council, and it looks something like this, with a lot of sense of place. We're very lucky on the street. We have everything going for us from an urban design point of view. The walls are about as high as the facades are about as high as the street is wide. In other words, that's a perfect room proportion. And so we have the opportunity for an outdoor room. We should embrace that. All rooms include some furniture. And I had it as a full-on closed street once upon a time. I know that since then it went to a one-way street. I was okay with that. You know, I know that the council hammered out the compromise that they could cancel. They could.
Listen up, folks, please.
They hammered out the compromise that they could. But of course, I had a lot of furniture on it. Of course, this wasn't voted on, and they went to the one-way street, etc. I definitely think we have an opportunity for the furniture to make sense there in a more centripetal kind of way, where there's a bench, and a bench, where a mom can sit down with a 2-year-old and look at the 2-year-olds in the eye. This is all very centrifugal design, and I'm looking for very centripetal design. That means people face each other, as opposed to communicate to each other like this, hi over there. You know, that's not very conducive to civitas. So where a mom can relate to a 2-year-old, where a grandma can relate to a 5-year-old at the same bench setting, and maybe help with their shoes, tire shoes, and a dad with a baby in a carriage, all can be part of an ensemble that makes sense from a social point of view. The whole process should be one of, does it work socially? We have a poster in our office that says, if it doesn't work socially, why bother? So look at how to make it where people relate to each other healthfully, convivially, can talk about the issues of the day, can talk about the family, and can be together. The plants are fantastic. Miriam has done such a great job over the years, and she'll probably take care of these plants too, of making that street feel like a human place, humanizing the street.
Thanks, Chuck.
Making the street more people-centric and just a little less brick-centric.
Thanks, Chuck.
Yes, do something. Thank you.
Good evening. Peter Van Zandt. I am on the Planning Commission, but I'm speaking as an individual tonight. And I'm going to mention that we did discuss the J.J. Jackson approach. It's kind of nice. They've got some greenery. They've got some pot there, I believe. But one thing that occurred to me, which I didn't bring up at the Planning Commission meeting, so it's not in your minutes there, is outdoor dining. We allow outdoor dining. Depending on whether you count the bars as eligible for outdoor dining or not, there are somewhere between 4 and 6 establishments that are eligible under our rules for outdoor dining. And we have one so far out there. So it's a table, 4 chairs. Multiply that by 3 or 4, and that street is starting to get loaded. So that's why we talked about travel on the sidewalk and people getting around. So we have to keep in mind that somewhere down the line, there may be some more dining tables and chairs sitting there per our existing rules. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Any other public comment on this item? All right, I'm going to bring it to the table. I'm going to go to Adam, Gary, Lou, and then I'll speak.
For me, it's paramount that ADA clearance is at the forethought. It makes a lot of sense to me to have the benches up against the buildings instead of at the curb. Just folks negotiating our city in a wheelchair, I don't want them to experience any more discomfort than anyone else. I think, and furthermore, I think the benches up next to the buildings look a lot better than benches or planters up on the curb. I think keeping them next to the buildings is also going to provide shade for people sitting there enjoying the plants and the bench. I can see the point of having the uniform planters look more uniform than is natural for Nevada City. But I'm I guess a little confused why letting the store owners sort of do what they will with planters of their own decision is somehow more legitimately satisfying to the Historical Society than something using materials that they've signed off on and so forth. That's just an area of confusion for me that I'm sure can be explained. But I lived on Commercial Street for over a decade. I had a business on Commercial Street. That street is precious to me, and I don't see anything wrong with making it more comfortable for people who are visiting by giving them a bench to sit in. And plants make things more beautiful. That's what I got for now.
Thanks, Adam. Gary?
Okay. First of all, Teresa, that was one of the best carrot cakes I ever tasted in my life. Thank you. Truly. I know it was for Adam, but he was generous, I'm sure. So I watched way too many people sitting on curbs eating food on Commercial Street to not believe that there isn't a need for benches. I guess I'm a little concerned about, let's see, when it's 105 degrees, how does a black metal bench feel when you sit on it? Do you get branded? You know, I think there's it's just a thought because it does get hot. We do need benches. There's no doubt about it. I'm sort of would describe what I call the lines of desire guy, and what that means is that when you put something out, that you understand that you put it out, and then understand how people are really going to use it. Where is it that people sit on those curbs, and where do the benches go in relation to that? And then once they go out, I think there's a really legitimate concern about the amount of potential installation of facilities on that street, because if we went to 1 or 2 parklets or something which would be extremely difficult, I'm not sure we could do that on Commercial Street, because if you did a parklet in the street, it would actually close the street. But with the way we're looking at sidewalk dining, I was looking at it today with Heartwood and their tables out at the curb. So I do support the benches. I'm not sure. I'm willing to concede that staff and the Planning Commission have worked out the location of benches. So I'm willing to support that. provided that we continue to observe that and understand whether it's working or not and adjust as appropriate. I'm more issues with the planters. Well, let me also say that, wow, I've worked on this project my entire political career that I've been in Nevada City. And I'd like to not spend the rest of my political career working on this project in Nevada City. And I'm also pretty sure that we've probably spent more money on staff time than we have on construction on this project at this point. So I really am, and I'm sensitive to staff's need to put a stake through the heart of this thing and get it done. But I think the planters need more consideration. I want to be careful how we do that and what that looks like. I'm sensitive to the Planning Commission's concerns. I would also say that, merchants being responsible for their own plants and their own settings is great, but you have no control over that, and you can't make them do that, and you can't make them maintain them. Love your plants, Teresa. I really do. The way they frame your door, they look great. I mean, that's what I see. I absolutely believe greenery matters on that street because it does. It's very different on the weekend. There are days when I walk out there and look down that street on a weekday, I'm not sure that we didn't break it because it looks so barren and the sidewalks are so wide and there's nobody there and it just looks sort of empty. So benches, yes, I think we need to give more consideration to the planters and the best way for them to work, and that's kind of where I am.
Thanks, Gary. Lou?
First of all, I want to echo something Gary implied, but I want to make it explicit. I would like us, when we consider this item, to vote on the benches separately from the planters, because I think we'll have a divide on opinion on that. Then, when it comes to the report that's in the agenda, I noticed that one thing it says is the commission recommended against installation of planters on the sidewalk, but that staff recommends approval to commission buying 5 custom planters. And I wanted to ask, why is the staff recommending a softscape element that, according to this, the commission itself did not recommend?
So, I mean, the way that I see it is similarly to not recommending approval of every project that goes in front of the commission. I think that making a recommendation that was different than what the Planning Commission recommended to City Council is sort of where I was coming from. And that comes directly from the way that meeting went. And how there was such a long discussion on placement of benches, and much less discussion on planters. So I brought up at the end of the meeting, I think we're going to need to continue this item to the next meeting. And then, as Lori stated, it sort of became like, oh, quick, we need to actually, we don't want to, let's finish this. Let's throw some motions out there. And so then I was sort of going off of my notes and I helped make the motions based on what I was writing down during the meeting and hearing. I do think that the Wendy Ermshar's comment about, well, I'm not sure if planters in these current proposed places in these exact, sizes and look and feel is the best placement of the planters. But that's because they're looking at it at a meeting. I spent a lot of time on the street. I spent a lot of time walking on the sidewalk, and I moved those darn planter boxes around. And one being on the curb by the Fern works, and one being by the building at the Fern doesn't work. It just doesn't look good. It doesn't feel right. So I sort of felt like there was a desire to sort of redesign the layout, but that there wasn't enough time. And then also there was sort of that opposite side where it was that discussion of planters being allowed to be placed by the merchants, and we should recommend to council that the city come up with a program for an encroachment and design guidelines for planters, and that was sort of the direction that the conversation with planters went around, rather than looking at the potential placement, thinking about it in architecture, scale, size, in relation to the buildings. So.
Thank you, Amy. Oh, and also thank you. Lisa. Oh, yeah, sorry. Thank you, Lisa. And also thank you for sitting through hours of this meeting, not only discussing the items with the Planning Commission, but taking notes at the same time. I have tried doing that with the Fire Safety Advisory Committee and failed miserably. So you are miles ahead of me in mental sharpness when it comes to that. And I also want to thank the Commission for spending several meetings and hours on this issue. I think your discussions have been thorough and thoughtful and considering a number of issues. I would like to read what I heard when I listened to the final discussions at the end of the meeting when the Commission actually passed a resolution, because I think that's something we don't have, is what was the resolution that got passed at the end of the meeting. This is what I took from my notes, listening to that 3 times. It was a summary by Lisa, and it went like this. We have some recommendations for council: 2 backed benches at the top of the street, 1 backed bench at Three Forks, and 1 backless bench near Three Forks on the curb. There seemed to be general agreement on that. Then the summary went on to say, a consideration for the council, asking the council to allow us, the Planning Commission, to work on guidelines for sidewalk encroachments for planters. That was 1 point. Request the council consider updating our outdoor dining standards for benches. That was the 2nd point. And ask council to consider doing a project where we consider other bench locations throughout the business district. That is what I believe the Commission passed 4-1. I'm willing to be contradicted on that, but that's after, like I said, watching it 3 times and taking notes. That is what the Commission actually recommended. And that is what I support.
Thank you, Lou. Lisa, thank you so much. I know it is not your job to be a transcriber and transcribe hours and hours of conversation. I appreciate you taking the time to make the best sense of that as you could. Planning commissioners who are in the room and those who are not, thank you for, we asked your input on this. We wanted recommendations from you. The fact that you guys can discuss benches for 4 hours amazes me. Thank you for doing that work. I'm glad I'm not. And we do. We come to you for input on historical significance and other things, right? With that being said, I'm hesitant for more process on this. It's been so processed. Gary said he's been working on this all of his political career. I was part of this before my political career with the Nevada County, what was it, FUNC, Nevada County, Future of Nevada County folks that Chuck had a hand in engaging people on this conversation even before I got on council. So there's no doubt in my mind people need a place to sit on Commercial Street. I am concerned, like Gary, of those metal, the black metal in the heat. Commercial Street gets beating sun. And I disagree, something that I did heard in the Planning Commission meeting that was not in the notes that you sent. Lori, thank you for sending those notes. I do not believe the planters distract from the buildings. I'm really tired of that sort of argument that these softscape elements take away from the historic nature of our buildings. Nothing on Commercial Street is historic, y'all. Not the concrete, not the parking meters, not the people. I think we do a really good job of mimicking the history in our architecture and our buildings, and I like that, and I don't want that to go away. But nothing else on that street is historic, and so I think And if I'm being honest, what's more historic than greenery? I mean, it really hurts my soul to hear that people don't want plants on Commercial Street. Thank you, Olivia, for naming a native plant species. I think Miriam does a great job of that in Callahan Park. I would love to see that continued in the planters. Listen, I love that aesthetic from Savannah. I'm a big fan of New Orleans. I am, I went to France for the first time 2 summers ago, and I know what you're talking about, Lori, that sort of like New Orleans-y feeling down there. You get a little hint of that, right? I love that. I do have concerns about what it means, like Gary said, to put that, maybe even freedom on businesses, but also potentially a burden. So many businesses are suffering right now. You know, the economy, the people aren't spending in the same way, people aren't making in the same way. And so to put another thing on businesses feels like something I'm not willing to ask businesses to do. However, I think there's opportunities, if we were to go that direction, for the city to share in some of those costs, especially with the ARPA funds. We did a good job of offering, business fee waivers. What does that look like in a second round for, not just licenses and sidewalk dining permits, but also greenery, right? I would like to direct staff to see what it looks like to have options for an encroachment permit process. And I want us to be careful with how we lay that out. Again, just like not putting added pressure on businesses, and also not assuming that those businesses have the same aesthetic as Teresa and JJ Jackson's to be able to, each something that somebody said was, each building is different. It's shaped different. It has a different vibe. It has a different feel. I don't know if this was Amy or Wendy that said this, but each one would require a sort of unique expression of greenery around it. Listen, I like Mill Street in Grass Valley. I like it. I think it's fun. I think it's great. Do I think Nevada City can do it differently, and should Nevada City do it differently? Yes, I absolutely. I like Mill Street for Grass Valley, and I would like to see something different for Nevada City. I would like to see us move forward with some benches and planter boxes and continue to see what the encroachment permit process looks like for having greenery added for our sidewalk and parklet dining process. That's where I am. Any other comments from the table? Questions?
Look,
Come on.
So 3 of the 4 benches are up against the south side of the street and won't get direct sun, but the one floating bench you're going to grill yourself on.
like thinking about grill marks on food, but never mind. I'm not going to go there. So I'm not sure. I'm seeking clarity about what you mean by encroachment permit, because I understand that, and would that be a direction to staff to develop like standards for an encroachment permit so you could put your own plants on the sidewalk? Is that what we're referencing? I'm trying to understand it.
So I think it's options, which would include engaging the Planning Commission in design standards for something like that, right? Yeah, what does it look like? What's that?
That was their among their recommendations.
And you know, what does it look like to just add that piece of greenery to that already established process? But I also would like options for how we can support businesses in doing that.
Okay.
Is the idea of the sort of uniform city planters that the city would be responsible for upkeep, removing cigarette butts, watering those things, all that? Is that part of the idea? Is Public Works going to water these? Is the idea that the chamber would help us? Is that the idea that the businesses would help us?
Yeah, the chamber is going to help us with plant maintenance and things, and then cigarette butts will be the merchant, probably Public Works, a bit of the chamber.
But again, it's a
sort of all
non-smoking
working
downtown, so
together.
that will never happen.
Yeah, I think more of the idea of the planters' uniformity or having a few on that streetscape is to have, be able to have larger plantings, I suppose, instead of just smaller, like, I imagine one being outside of a shop being like this big, you know? I don't imagine a shop owner wanting to do anything larger than like this. So when you have a larger planter, you can have more greenery inside of it, and in the height of summer, like the plants will be, you know, thriving and looking beautiful. And I was with you, I was pretty taken aback by the whole idea of individual planters by every shop owner, and that sort of idea in my head felt like a potential kind of hodgepodge, and I was really surprised that the public spoke on that, and that also the commission was entertained by that idea, because I think about it, and everyone has such different styles that even if we say, okay, well, we want these materials, steel, wood, what, clay, maybe, people are just going to get the ones at grocery outlet, you know? So it's like, I sort of thought of it as like, okay, it seems like a little bit of a regulatory burden perhaps, and then people start complaining, do they have an encroachment permit for that plant, or their plants are dying, they look terrible, like just sort of that finger pointing thing might become an issue in the future, but I am not opposed to the idea. I would be happy to work on it if that's what's best. I do think that Wendy had a great comment, and that was that she as well thought that the planters seemed like they would be better suited against the buildings. And in that case, that would be up to the merchant to sort of decide what would go there, because it's unique to their building and what fits there. So we definitely have a little bit of a funny situation here, and I'm sorry for it.
No, I mean, it's, I don't think you have to be sorry for it. I think the whole project has been flawed and troublesome for a variety of reasons, and there's no easy outcome.
We definitely have some time. None of this would happen tomorrow. It sounds like there's consensus. I'm not going to say what a vote would be, but it sounds like there's consensus for at least 3 of those 4 benches.
4 benches. Can we have 4 benches, please?
You know, if your direction was to move forward with those tonight, we would be, you know, acquiring them and putting them in and seeing how they look. This certainly can be iterative in that they may go in and you say, you know what, 3 of the 4 of them are right, and this other one needs to move, you know, 4 feet to the right, and we can work through those issues. The same is true for the planters or no planters, or whether it is an encroachment permit, or whether it's the city assisting the businesses in selecting their own. If you wanted to, we could, you know, take some time and go not back to the drawing board, but back to the exploration of those things that the Planning Commission discussed and that the community put forward. All of those options are available for you tonight. You could tell us that you don't like any of it and go back to the drawing board. You could approve some, or you could approve all, and you could certainly provide us direction to bring back to you options or bring back some of it to the Planning Commission for further deliberation. We'd be happy to take any of those directions. I think it would be, even though I said we have some time, I think it would be good to get some resolution to a place for people to sit other than the sidewalk and the street by the time the rain stops falling in about, you know, a month and a half.
Let me take a shot at this. Shoot it. Wait a minute.
So on this item, council, I don't think a motion is required. I think it's unfair to, with all of the pieces that are left open, I'm not sure a motion would actually assist staff. I was taking notes from a legal perspective, and it sounds like there's general consensus on the planters, on the benches as sourced and placed, with some comments, and staff's heard your concerns about some of the placement of those. And it sounds like there was not consensus in terms of planners, and so I think that the direction should be to proceed with that direction. If staff has enough idea as to what the majority consensus here is as to the benches, and to send it back to staff for us to internalize and strategize on how to best move forward with the discussion if there's the need for more discussion on the planters and how maybe best to tee that up. But that would essentially be a very long-worded motion with a lot of open ends.
I have a lot of words, Steve. Okay, so let me make a suggestion then for proceeding. If you disagree about the benches, we should talk about it. But I think that we should give the benches a shot. I do. I mean, 4 benches. Let's see how it works. The idea is, yes, they're bolted down because they absolutely must, but they're absolutely movable. I mean, it's easy to do. You just drill more holes, you move stuff around. So that staff has enough direction to move on the benches. But I would like to see a further dialogue because, the Planning Commission hasn't given the planters 3.5 hours of their attention yet. So, and it warrants that, it warrants that. But that further conversation and dialogue with staff around the planters and with more options, because I think that's important. I think the green is important. The only thing I would sort of want to stipulate, I would like more options, but I think, thank you for Olivia for the native plants piece. We really need to consider that piece of it. So that's about what goes in the planters after the planters are done. So that's sort of what I'm recommending as a direction, if that's all right with the rest of you.
I'm for the benches.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm happy with that, Carrie.
I wouldn't say I'm happy with it, but I think it's the right move. Well, just because, and just to clarify that, because I just wish we were at a point where we were finally putting a button on it.
And so the planters remain the last piece, but let's get it done and finish this thing. So I'm just.
So planning commissioners, I look forward to hearing from receiving notes and hearing comments and watching your many, many hours of opining on planters.
And if I one more comment, if I would make, thank you so much, Lisa. It's not an easy one, I know that, and appreciate your attention to detail and your work very much, and putting up a 3.5 hour.
Yes, and the members of our staff who helped you place the planters on the street for the workshop. That was really helpful.
Yay, Evan.
Yay, Evan.
And made some of the pictures you see as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thanks, Lisa.
We will work with Chair and I and the Planning Commission to explore options. We'll post the agenda this Friday for their next Thursday meeting. It probably does not have room to have this discussions, but we'll find out what their desire is, or if they would like to take this to a special meeting, and we'll let everybody know where next steps are.
They still have the lights in the parking lot to discuss.
That is on the agenda as well.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
And we are moving right along. Thank you so much for your patience back there. Item number 10, consideration of the appointment of Jonas, tell me if I get your name right, Jonas Arellanes. I'm Daniela Fernandez, right? So to the vacant Youth Public Arts Commissioner position. Folks, I'm going to ask that we maintain quiet as we give this important last item its consideration. I'm going to invite Sean to talk, and then Jonas, if you'd like, you're welcome to come up to the podium to say something, but certainly no pressure.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Last item for those watching at home. As you know, we created a public arts ordinance and policy and created a public arts commission for the first time in this city last year. And on December 14th last year, you appointed 6 of the 7 public arts commissioners, deferred a recommendation for the youth commissioner. Youth commissioner being in our ordinance 16 to 18 years of age. They have to live in the county. They don't have to live in the city, and they have a 2-year term instead of a 4-year term, but that can be renewed for another 2 years, so it could be a 4-year term. If you approve this tonight, he'll be sworn in and fill the seat right over there where Dean is sitting at the April meeting. They meet the first Wednesday of every month. So we're excited about that. This is a recommendation for appointment from the Vibrancy Committee, so I will leave it to the mayor and Councilmember Klein to comment any further on that. That's all we have. Congratulations if you vote yes.
I assure you, Jonas, that your meetings will look a lot differently than this one, and hopefully a bit more vibrant in content. So please don't let this scare you away. Adam, do you have anything you'd like to say?
I've got to know Jonas and his wonderful family a little bit. His folks have Enid and Edgar on Zion, and tremendous people. And he comes with a recommendation from Sarah Coleman, no less, who is not on our commission, but is extremely active in the Nevada City art scene. Jonas, do you have anything you want to say?
Yeah, come on up.
Kathy's waiting to come as well.
Yeah.
Good evening, you guys. My name is Jonas Arianes. Thank you for inviting me to tonight's meeting and for giving me the opportunity to apply for this position. I'm 18 years old. My family first moved to the area in 2010, where my sister and I attended Twin Ridges Home Study. This is where I first gained an interest in art from my teacher, Miss Trina. I've been drawing and sketching ever since. My sister is a local DJ for KVMR and KVMRX, and my family has owned a small business for the past 18 years, 8 of those being locally. I believe being a part of the Nevada City Arts Council will help me as well as many other people grow as artists and community members. Our beautiful town is so rich with talent as well as folks who appreciate the arts. Thank you again for the opportunity.
Jonas, thank you so much. We're going to take public comment, and then feel free to stick around while the council weighs in as well. Opening up public comment for this item. Come on up, Kathy. Kathy is the chair of our Arts Commission.
Hi, Kathy Wilcox Barnes. This is the reason I came to the meeting tonight. And I wanted, on behalf of the Nevada City Public Arts Commission, to welcome you. I can't tell you how excited I am to see the range of ages, the mix of ages that we have on the commission. I'm probably the oldest, and now we're balanced out by the youngest. And also, right now, I'm sorry, Jonas, but it's all female, and you're going to balance. You're breaking that glass ceiling of the Public Arts Commission. Anyway, I just wanted to say how thrilled I am to have you join us, and we're looking forward to having them at our next meeting.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kathy. Bringing it back to the table. Questions, comments?
How great it is to have a young person as part of our city government.
Yeah, service is a really amazing thing, and your choice of art and to serve it in this manner, which supports it not just for you but our entire community, and I respect you for that. It's a good thing. I look forward to seeing your art. As I say, I'm sitting here among several artists. To know a person, you must know their art, and I find that to be really important. What's your business? I want to know. Here's your commercial time. What is the business that your folks have?
They have a vintage clothing store.
They got good records, Gary.
And records?
They got good records.
And where is it located?
It's in the old hospice building, right across the street from SP.
Oh, okay. All right. Good. Wanted to know. Yeah. Free commercial, but also I'm curious. But so thank you for your service, and I think it's wonderful. Some of us spent time today learning just how valuable monetarily and budgetarily that the arts are to our community, and it's remarkable. But as we all know, it's so much more than that, and it's the heart. So thank you so much.
I mean, I've met his mom and I've met his sister. He's going to do fine with, a bunch of strong women. He's going to do great. I'm not worried about it.
Jonas, I'm so happy you're here. Working with Adam and I, working really closely with staff who worked their butt off to get this Public Arts Commission to happen in a remarkable amount of time, which was about a year, probably in all, from just having conversations with Sean about it. So your voice is going to be invaluable there. I mean, it was really important when Adam and I were coming up with the makeup of the commission to include a youth voice. And I should say Adam and Sean and I making up the composition of the commission. It's necessary. It's necessary for young people to engage in public process at all levels. And particularly as a commissioner, you know, I said once before that our commissions and our committees are sort of like the arms and legs that help local government function. So to have a young person on one of our commissions is just amazing. Super excited for you and the commission, and to like Gary said, to get to know you through that. With that, I'm looking for a motion to appoint Jonas as our youth commissioner.
I move we appoint Jonas as our youth commissioner.
I second.
Great. I have a motion and a second. Gabby, please.
Councilmember Cece?
Yes.
Councilmember Klein?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Peterson?
Yes, absolutely.
Mayor Fernandez?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Yay. Congratulations, Jonas. Thank you so much. And with that, we're going to move on to our staff reports and council member report backs.
Two quick things. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you to people on our courthouse ad hoc committee and those that gave their public input. Met recently to review the 14 parcels that the Judicial Council has been considering. You may have seen the article in the news in the Union about that. Interviews with the sheriff and other folks. That list of 14 will quickly be whittled down to a final list of 3. There'll be a press release coming out on that in the near future, probably maybe the early part of next week. So we have been very active in taking that community input and putting it into the process with the courts. So just thank you to everybody in the community that's been active in that. I saw some more Keep Our Courts signs, Keep Our Courts Downtown signs. I think it's because, you know, they have the signs and they want to put them back out because they want to have a voice, and that's really important. So thank you to everybody for that. Might have been mentioned earlier, I'm not sure. This Saturday at Sierra College, all day, the business of art with the Nevada County Arts Council, some good keynotes and some great sessions. If you want a great session, don't come to mine. If you want a good session, you can come to mine. But honored to serve on a panel at 11 with representatives from the county and Truckee and Grass Valley about the intersection of government and art. And that's all I have this evening, Madam Mayor.
Sweet. Council members, Lou, what have you got?
Actually, not much this month, so onward.
All right.
Sure. And, you know,
weren't expecting that.
No, I wasn't expecting that. Not at all. Let's see, a couple things. You know, arts and business, Adam and I attended to the presentation today by the National Arts, what is that, Arts Council? Or, but a nationwide study of 365 some areas about the value, actual dollar amount values of arts to the community. It was very well presented. We've got the documentation on it. If you're interested, it can be downloaded. But let's just say that the discovery is that, and I think a lot of us know this, but when 60% of the people attending events come from outside of the area, and that they're spending about $70 each, not including admission. And that's on room and food and that sort of thing. Also, I mean, the dollar value is 40 million, that's right, it was 33 before, somewhere around $40 million to our county from people who pay to engage in arts. But I think, again, even more so as we spoke to this, was the quality of life and the meaning to people of art. I talked to the guy afterwards, really dynamic presenter, particularly for an economist, but really informative, really well spoken. And I said to him, I said, but you know, I would never pick tourism as an organizing principle for a city economy. But this is what we do and this is what we have. And he has made it clear how important arts are in that conversation. So more on that, we can get that access, and Adam may have more to say. Cool street signs going up were there, the posts are going up, the signs on top, if you've seen them around town, look at them, you could actually see what street you're on. And this was all fire-oriented stuff where, we loved our old Frontier wooden signs and posts, but they go really fast in a fire, and so you don't know where you are. And you might know where you are if you live there, but if you're trying to find something. So anyway, these signs are looking good, a lot of more good work by our Public Works Department. Also today, just a note, but so I spent much of the morning downtown in between meetings and just got bombed with brown water issues in both the Communal Cafe and the Place, who I know they were doing work on the bridge. I understand that. I actually understand what they were doing in trying to make water lines safe, but in the process, a lot of stuff gets shaken loose. All you got to do is open and close a valve, and you're going to get brown water. But what they had hoped is that they'd wished they'd been informed. And I know it's difficult to do that and understand that impact, but you had an espresso machine that shut down because the filter shut down, and you had somebody else who was just like, I'm sorry, I can't put water on your table because they didn't have water that was clear and they weren't sure if it was safe. So all I'm saying, these things are going to happen. All you got to do, I've seen water companies go out and just exercise valves and do that, and it's unintentional. But I think I think it's something to pay attention to as we work on this project, because there's a lot of elements to it, and improve communication. And I know, the Chamber's got the email list, and if we could just hit people with, this could happen. But just want to bring it up, not trying to be critical about it. I understand there's so many variables, but people were freaked out.
Appreciate that.
And that's not when you want to be an elected official. Come here, I need to talk to you. Talia was a little, But
we saw her as well, and appreciate the feedback, and certainly an opportunity for us to do a better job at communicating there. And was not Public Works' intent to impact the businesses, but it definitely did. And now that we know, there'll be many more activities with the bridge, and so we'll definitely want to communicate on that.
That's the important thing, is that we learn as we go. And so that's all I got. Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. Adam, what you got?
Yeah, just echoing Sean talking about the business of art. That's going to be excellent. Sean said he's going to be presenting. Very excited about that. I'll be sitting there for that. And of course, my colleague, the mayor, is closing out the event that day, Business of Art. It's going to be great.
And you're not going to be there for that.
No, there's a baby shower I got to go to.
People having babies.
People out here having babies. And also the presentation that we saw today, Gary, that was great. And I'll echo again that I've said before that Nevada City's art is my favorite of our exports. And just getting eyeballs and ears on what people around here are creating is the most satisfying thing to me. And I think something that we can all focus on is just trying to make sure artists can live here and afford to live here and thrive here. So let's talk about housing next. And the mayor.
Thank you. Thank you for teeing that up, Adam. I'm always going to go to you last, so you can say that.
Do the intro,
Adam and I met with the Arts Council for the Grass Valley, Nevada City Cultural District as the Vibrancy Committee. They have a new staff member, Heather Heckler, who is heading up that project, the district. And so we agreed to quarterly meetings. Grass Valley will join us for that. I would like to echo our city manager, Sean. I do think that Nevada City Grass Valley Cultural District in that order does flow better than Grass Valley Nevada City Cultural District. That's just personal preference. And then, but I don't have anything new to say on housing, but soon you and I should talk about that. And I think that's it. With that,
One more note.
Yes.
If you want a profanely good time, go see Glengarry Glen Ross at the Nevada Theater, now playing.
All right. Thank you so much. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn this meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
See you next time, folks.
Thank you, Dean. Good to have you here.
Dean, I hope you're